Hey everyone, hope you're all doing great. Welcome back to the Anime Fictions 2.0. Today, we're diving into part 2 of What If Naruto the Quirky Villain. If you're enjoying these alternate timelines, make sure to hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, and check out the other videos on the channel. And of course, drop your thoughts in the comments. I always love hearing your ideas. Alright, enough talk, let's get into the story. So those are the people in one of the two first-year hero classes, Naruto thought to himself as he sat on top of the school building in his Kurama costume, looking down at the field below. When he had snuck into the school's teacher's room, he had learned that originally today the heroes were going to be going to the USJ training center, but that had been changed when he had tricked All Might into thinking a traitor was amongst the students. Idiot, actually believing him. Still, All Might wasn't teaching the class at the moment, oddly enough, since this was supposed to be teaching. Until he had approached his quirk's 3-hour limit, something Naruto heard the other teachers talking about, something that made sense since Naruto had seen those wounds on the man's side when he was spying on All Might to find the person chance to poison him. He must have overworked himself today before school started. Himiko Toga, she was able to beat my quirk's spatial awareness by not breathing and clearing her mind. She erased her very presence, and she forced me to actually punch her. Naruto whispered to himself as he thought about his own personal failure, being forced to hit a woman, even though it was something he wasn't truly against. He just found the thought of hitting a woman distasteful. I've got to get some training in, to become a better villain, Naruto muttered as he looked down at the students who were going to be training today. They would make for good training tools since they had quirks that he didn't know much about, meaning he couldn't prepare for them like he did with the pro heroes. Not to mention there was 20 of them, so they would have the numbers advantage over him as well. Finally, he was going to be using this as training, so he was going to be doing things differently than he normally would. With Class 1A. Okay class, this might not have been what was planned for today, but today we're going to teach you how to use your quirk to fight at non-lethal levels. Since, for quite a few people, our quirks could easily turn deadly. Some of us are lucky and only have quirks that are easy to control, and some have harder ones. One of the students rose a hand up. Yes, Ida-kun? Mirko asked as she looked at the class sheet that she had been given. To keep her out of the public eye, in order to recover from her little press disaster, she had been sent to UA as a temporary teacher, a sub who would cover for teachers who couldn't make it. Since All Might was out for the day, and 13th USJ training day was cancelled, that left her to make use of her time with the students. Mirko Dano, is there a reason we aren't in our costumes? Yeah? Mirko asked with a dumbfounded expression at the stupid question. We're going to be sparring today, you'll be taking turns fighting me 4-on-1 combat, so you can. Mirko looked at the notes that she wrote on the inside of her arm so that she could look at the notes that Eraserhead wrote on the inside of her arm. Practice using your quirks at non-lethal levels. Half of the students saw the writing on her arm, and in unison, sweat dropped when they realized that she wasn't a teacher at the school for a reason. Ha. Okay, what bastard is laughing? Because you'll be going first, and I'll take pleasure teaching you how to be non-lethal. Mirko pounded a fist into her palm with a twitching eye when she heard a loud laughter. She looked towards the students, at all of their faces, and saw none of them were laughing. Invisible student, stop your laughing. Mirko could only guess that the one she couldn't see was the one laughing. Ah Bun, don't you recognize my laugh at this point? I'm hurt, but please don't stop the lesson on my account. I do love seeing your cute little nose twitch when you get frustrated. Kurama! Mirko didn't even get to shout out his name, because the class got to it before her. Hey, can we do this later? I've really got to sub for this class. Mirko's fist was twitching a lot, a vein on it bulging with the desire to punch him. She couldn't though, because she had a class to teach. She watched as Kurama walked towards them with his hands in his pockets, and the class didn't seem sure how to react to him. Don't worry class, he's completely harmless. Naruto poked Mirko's forehead, and her eyes widened when she collapsed on her face, with Naruto walking towards the class. Not today, today I'm going to be changing things up. Naruto's voice was different, it contained a tone that Mirko had never heard before from him. It was a tone that was far more dangerous than what she was used to hearing from him. Hey, hero wannabes. Naruto addressed the class as he picked up Mirko's drop chart and started to match faces to names, before he reached into his pocket and pulled out a clear vial with brown liquid in it. Wannabe! Die! Boom! Naruto reacted in perfect time when Bakugo Katsuki used a large explosion from his palms to go rocketing towards Naruto with an angry, aggressive look on his face. When he got close to Naruto, he put his hands in front of him, and they started to glow when he prepared to unleash another, more powerful explosion. Naruto glared at Bakugo, and jumped forward towards the boy's hands, and slammed his forehead into his palm. Bakugo collapsed on the ground, and his explosion turned into nothing but smoke before it could even be released, when the poison started to course through his body. Now, at least let me explain the rules of the game. This is the antidote to the poison inside of Mirko right now. In 15 minutes, Bun will become permanently paralyzed unless she gets this antidote. Take it from me. Naruto put the antidote in his pocket, and gestured for the students to rush towards him. Naruto grabbed Bakugo by the back of the neck, and lifted his limp, but growling body up. When I move, you're dead, Kurama. Now, we're just playing a game, the stakes are just higher than normal. Naruto tossed Bakugo a good distance away from where the fighting would take place, onto his face, so that he couldn't do any damage to his surroundings when he realized he could still shoot explosions from his palms if he actually tried to. The class was frozen. Naruto chuckled. 19 versus 1, fair and square, and tell you what, I'll make things a little more fair. Only the second Naruto closed his eyes to gloat, he felt his senses go off. Naruto leaned backwards and he saw a long stream of tape shoot towards where his face had been, and a dark shadow with a raven-like head shot out of a kid's belly and raced towards Naruto. Naruto grabbed Hanta-Siro's tape out of the air, and yanked on it, before he wrapped it around the shadow's arms and tied them up, and sat on top of the shadow's back. Long-distance fighters had an advantage over him, so Naruto jumped off of the dark shadow's back and cleared the distance between him and the front row of students. Kurama's tactics don't include physical violence. From the news recordings, he seems to rely on his poison to take down people, and he needs physical contact to administer it. Don't let him touch you, and stay 4 feet away from him. Izuku Midoriya shouted out to everyone as Naruto landed close towards them. Izuku raised his arm up, and got ready to make a flicking motion at Naruto. Also, don't stand in front of me. Got it, Deku/Midoriya. Deku, that's a cute nickname, but behind me is Mirko. Whatever you're about to do will hit her motionless, defenseless body. Naruto pointed out to Deku as he gestured to Mirko, and Deku lowered his arm with a jolt of shock, like he had forgotten about her. Cold. Naruto dodged a wall of ice that formed between him and the class, a wall that would have consumed him if he hadn't dodged it. Naruto shivered when he realized there was a person who could use his natural weakness against him, but he didn't let much of his reaction show on his face. Bonjour then, senior. Stick with French or Spanish, not both. Naruto saw Yuga Oyama get thrown over the wall with his belly facing towards Naruto, by a large amount of tape around his arm. Out of the corners of his eyes he saw 2 students running out from behind either side of the wall. Tenya Ida, and on the other side was Mina Ashido, with her shoes off and skating on acid coming from her feet. A laser shot out of Yuga's belly right towards Naruto, while Mina and Ida started to change directions to go towards Naruto. The other students were slower, but they started to come out from behind the ice wall. I've got a gift from my brother. Naruto took a step back and let the laser hit the ground in front of him. As Ida reached where he was standing first, his leg pulled back in a fast kick. Naruto looked at the engine sticking out of the back of his legs, and a smile came over his face. You're Ingenium's brother then. Well then, I guess you're not trying to kick me, then you're going or Mirko. Naruto watched as Ida faked a kick and used the force to propel himself towards Mirko instead. Hero rule, secure hostages first, and like Ingenium, this boy would no doubt follow that rule to the T. Not a smart idea right now. Naruto reached backwards and touched the back of Ida's leg as Mina reached him second. She had acid gathering off her forearms, and she was about to fling it at him. Ida collapsed on the ground behind him as the poison took instant effect. Midoriya was right, he figured out that I would go for the hostage after seeing my quirk, and took me down. Ida laid on the ground defeated, glancing at Midoriya as the boy ran the long way around Kurama to go rescue Bakugo and Mirko. Flashback minutes before. Listen, Kurama is a non-violent villain. He never throws any punches or kicks, because his quirk lets him take people down by touching them. He's also extremely analytical, breaking down how heroes fight, and using their own quirks and personalities against them, but he needs skin contact. Ida and Ishido-san, Ida is going to play bait by faking a kick. Kurama will figure out you're faking. He'll take down Ida when he passes him. Ishido-san, cover your arms with acid. If his poison can't touch your skin, he can't take you down. Deku explained everything that he had learned about Kurama after watching him so much on the news, and even seeing some of the heroes getting taken down in person, from the audience on the streets. Ishido-san, when Kurama tries to poison you, pin him to the ground, and Aoyama fire a second laser at him. He is extremely durable, so aim for his head. You're sure this plan is going to work? Achiko asked as she looked at Deku with a curious glance, since he was highly intelligent, but he was far from perfect. He was also a hero/villain nerd, so his information would be very reliable. You're right, I can cover my arms in acid and not be hurt by his poison. Mina realized that she had a type advantage against Kurama's quirk. Right, and he doesn't hit girls, he's made a point to say that. You're the best bet to pin him. If this doesn't work, we need to surround him with anyone who can take out from a range. Ajui-san. Call me Tsuyu. Tsuyu pointed out, but nodded to him anyway. Tsuyu-san, can you steal the antidote with your tongue? On it. Present time. Clever plan, using that acid on you to create a poison-proof armor. Let me guess, you're going to take advantage of me not hitting girls, pin me, and have Yuga hit me in the head with a laser, and you're surrounding me with the long-range fighters. In case this plan fails, while the little frog is going to get the antidote with her tongue? Naruto looked Mina dead in the eyes, grinning when he saw her become shocked beyond belief. Naruto raised both of his arms up, and covered both of them in thick poison as well. His weakness to her was also her weakness to him, and Naruto grabbed onto Mina's arms with his own, his poison protecting him from her acid. His hands grabbed her wrists, and he threw her into the air, right towards Mirko, with her acidic arms facing the unmoving bunny hero, who would get injured by the acid. Naruto jumped into the air when ice, tape, a laser, and the same dark shadow from earlier races towards where he was. He predicted Midoriya's plan. How? Naruto landed on top of Mina's back while she was still in the air, and he grabbed both of her arms, forcing them behind her back. He threw her a second time, right towards Deku, and he stopped running towards Bakugo and Mirko when Mina nearly hit him. He was about to catch her. Don't, you'll be hurt by my acid. Tsuyu's tongue that should have grabbed the antidote, wrapped around Mina and pulled her away from Deku, and placed her on the ground. Tsuyu's eyes widened as she fell to her knees. Looking at Mina's clothes, she saw that there was poison around her waist where Kurama had landed on her back, and it was a dose large enough to affect even her. He predicted that Tsuyu was going to go for the antidote, and realized by throwing an acid-covered Mina at Deku, she would save him from the acid, so he put his acid on Mina so take out Tsuyu. Momo thought with her eyes widening in fear. Naruto landed on the ground behind Todoroki, who had wielded the ice, and Naruto's legs were frozen in an instant. Naruto used his powerful legs to break out of the ice, and he caught a hold of the back of Todoroki's neck as he tried to get away. Poison touched his skin, and Todoroki collapsed to the ground. Thanks to my costume, the cold didn't get to me as bad as it should have, and the biggest threat is down. Naruto thought as he dropped Todoroki on his face. Endeavor's son, huh? Gonna be honest here, was expecting more muscle on you. Naruto gave a small tease towards the boy, as his face glowered in rage. Whoa, daddy issues not my problem, I've got mommy issues. Naruto playfully admitted as he jumped and avoided a laser from Aoyama, who was looking like he was going to crap himself. Achiko placed her fingers together nearby, and Naruto took a step forward when two people dropped from the air and landed behind him. Eijiro Kirishima and Rikido Sato, Kirishima's body looking like a sharp rock, and Sato with his muscles breaking out of his gym uniform, both pulled their fists back. Ora 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 ora! I'm going to dodge every single punch with the JoJo pose. Naruto stated as he made it a point to strike up a pose every single time he dodged a punch. Naruto gently poked Sato's forehead, and took the muscle giant down in a second. Naruto then took a knee and posed as he placed his hand against Kirishima's face, palming it, as the hardened boy was taken down as well. 2 more down. It's like he knows everything I planned. Deku muttered as he stopped trying to go forward and rescue Mirko or Bakugo, unsure if Kurama had already planned for that and had a trap waiting. Naruto frowned a little. I'm still relying on my spatial awareness. If Himiko attacked me again, I wouldn't be able to abuse it like I normally do, but how do I train myself in not relying on it, when it's always on? Naruto thought to himself as he looked and saw birds coming from the sky and flying towards him with the apparent intention to attack him. The students were moving into different positions to make room. Deku returned to the flicking motion when he saw he had a clear shot at the villain they were facing, with nobody standing behind him. Zero used his tape to grab both Kirishima and Sato, jerking them out of the way as well. "Go for it, dude!" Zero shouted to Deku. SMA Deku collapsed forward before he could unleash his attack, and Naruto smirked under his mask. "Deku, don't you know when an object is moving, it tends to want to keep moving? Just because Tsuyu pulled Mina away from you, doesn't mean all of the poison would go with her. Several drops of poison sprinkled on your body. I knew Tsuyu would save you, but I knew the poison would still get to you, and though I don't know what your quirk is, it seems powerful, so I figured you wouldn't use it with the risk of hitting anyone else. I figured everyone would clear the way to give you a shot at me," Naruto explained when Deku lost almost all of the strength to even move a finger. Things were starting to get purely frightening for the rest of the students. "It's like he knows everything he are about to do. No, it's like he was able to predict how we would use our knowledge of his abilities we've seen him use, and he made a plan taking all of our actions into account from the very beginning of this fight. He's known, from the first second he saw any of us use our quirks, what he needed to do to win. It's like his brain works differently than ours does." Momo thought with widened, frightened eyes as she started to back away from Kurama, slowly, step by step. Her hands went up to her mouth, the sudden realization that she didn't know what she could do coming over her. She could come up with a plan, but would whatever she planned be what Kurama knew she was going to plan out, and thus be playing right into his hands? She analyzed everything that she had seen so far, and realized that based on that alone, that was the most likely outcome. Fumikage Tokoyami collapsed moments later. "What?" "That dark shadow came out of your body and it returned to your body. When I sat on it, I put poison on it. That poison got on your clothes, and slowly sank through them to your skin. Another one down," Naruto stated as he started to walk towards the largest cluster of students. Naruto glared up at the birds flying at him, and they scattered when they felt their own deaths coming. Sadly, if he poisoned those birds at all, they would die, so he needed to scare them off for their own good. "This is the guy who took on all those pro-heroes. This is the guy who beat All Might." Mineta collapsed out of fear and started to crawl away backwards, shaking as he did so. His words, the reminder of what Kurama had done to the strongest hero, seemed to ring true with the rest of the class as well. "You idiots! Kurama is non-violent. No matter what you do, he won't attack. Take advantage of it, and just fucking rush him," Mirko screamed out a reminder to them. They didn't need some smart plan, they just needed to bum rush him. There was a collective facepalm when all of them realized that they still outnumbered him, and out of fear for Kurama, they had tried to take him out with their intelligence instead of just fighting him. The villain who never fought anyone was no doubt more than likely unable to hold up in a straight fight. Mashiro Ojiro, Zero, and Mizo Shoji were the first wave to rush towards Naruto when they decided to stop thinking, with Koji Koda and Achiko following after them. Naruto blinked. "I've got him!" Toru shouted when she grabbed onto Naruto from behind, holding her arms around his clothed waist, while she herself was naked and invisible. "Can't move now, can you? Punch his lights out!" Toru shouted out when Mashiro jumped and got ready to tail slap Naruto in the head. "So you've finally stopped hiding?" Naruto asked Toru as he leaned forward and let Mashiro's tail smash into the top of her head, knocking her flying. Naruto touched Mashiro's tail and poisoned him. He flipped over Mashiro and touched the top of Zero's head, before he landed on the ground and touched Shoji, taking all four of them out before Koda and Achiko got to him, in less than a second. "Oi!" Koda froze in place, but Achiko kept running forward, and she reached out with her hands to touch Naruto. "Get him when he dodges." Naruto didn't dodge, instead, he let her touch him. Her quirk activated, and she actually grinned when it did. He grin vanished though when he didn't start to float, and his feet stayed firmly planted on the ground. His feet, they are sticking to the ground, but his shoes aren't covered in poison. Is his quirk really poison though? Tsuyu thought as she was given the chance to see that. Naruto put his palm on Achiko's face for her, and she collapsed in front of him as he jumped over it, and touched the top of Koda's head, taking out another two students. Only Yuga, Mina, Mineta, Denki, Kaminari, Jairu, and Momo were left at this point. All of the other students had been poisoned and taken down. A wall of ice erupted out of Todoroki's body and created a barrier between Naruto and the remaining students, and he was panting with the effort it took for him to even use his quirk. Wow, you're impressive, honest compliment there, buddy. Even while poisoned, you used your quirk with that much accuracy and strength, bonus points to you. Naruto clapped his hands, not sarcastically, as he praised Todoroki for his actions. He wasn't given a response other than a glare. But the little frog isn't the only one with super legs, Naruto mentioned as he jumped clear over the ice wall and looked down at the people below. He landed a few feet in front of them. Mina and Denki stepped in front of the rest. You can't poison me, and I won't let you touch them. Mina's legs were shaking as she shouted at Naruto, her hands raised up into fists. If you touch me, I'll use my quirk to electrocute you, so don't try it, I'm a human battery. Denki forced a calm look on his face. Hey, Muffin Top, tell me what will happen to my Netta if Denki here uses his quirk on me. What have I done that will make his quirk unwise? Naruto asked with a look at the unsure girl. She froze and looked at the smallest member of the class. Her brain worked at max speed to try and figure it out. You've left an invisible trail of poison on the ground around us, so if he uses his quirk, all of us will be shocked, but you're immune, aren't you? Momo mentioned as she figured out what he had done. What? Denki shouted, and Naruto started to clap his hands. Bravo, I saw you were thinking really hard earlier, and I figured you were the smart type, the type who could analyze everything around her. So, Denki, you were saying? Naruto asked his fellow blonde, who jumped and looked around for anything that he could do. He looked at Jairu, and she refused to take her eyes off of Naruto for even a second, sweat dripping from her face nervously. My stomach is feeling better, I won't miss if I fire from here. Yuga was shaking, but he saw that he had the perfect shot. He took the shot, and Naruto ducked and tossed the antidote up into the air, allowing the vial with the antidote in it to get destroyed by the laser. No! Naruto used their horror and jumped forward, placing one hand on Denki and Jairu's hands, taking them both down. Naruto poked Mina's forehead, and spun around to slap the back of Yuga's neck as well. Mina, with impressive reflex recovery time, spun around and tried to hit him with acid. He dodged and got away from Mina and Momo as the 4 people he touched collapsed to the ground. Crap, he got us, and I couldn't even help in the fight. Jairu hated the fact her quirk was useless for this type of fight. Since her long-range attack was part of her own flesh, she would have simply been poisoned. You destroyed the antidote, Yumon. Oh, there was no antidote, that was just Dr. Pepper in a vial. Mirko is going to be perfectly fine, everyone is also, thanks Momo. Naruto said as he waved to the girl, who looked down at the Dr. Pepper that was on the ground, splattered like the wound bee antidote they thought it was. What? Excuse me? Mina asked as well, not sure what just happened. Truth is, there is no poison on the ground that would have caused Denki to shock everyone. I just saw how afraid she was, and how she looked like she was thinking really hard. She's been frozen in fear for most of the fight. Since I beat Deka's plan, she's the analytical type. By playing you all for fools, she assumed I was a step ahead of all of you, and nothing you did could ever change it. Naruto started to explain as he walked towards them, the 2 girls walking away from him slowly. No, that can't be right then when you confirmed my theory. Momo's mind was racing as she spoke. The reason I haven't targeted you this entire fight, because once I noticed you overthinking everything, I realized that you were useful for scaring the others. You were no doubt trying to think of what I was thinking of, and because you think I had you all eating out of the palms of my hands, I was able to make you eat out of the palm of my hand by simply pretending that I had you eating out of the palm of my hand. Naruto explained as it truly sank in, and Momo collapsed to her knees, staring up at Naruto when she realized the truth. Just by looking at the fear on her face, and realizing that she had started to overthink the fight, he had created a future plan that involved her. He had decided that she was useful to him, predicted her personality traits, taken her brain apart piece by piece, and used her as a tool, knowing that she would do what he wanted her with nothing but a few words. It didn't matter what she had said when he asked her what he had planned, because she would have created the answer that would cause her allies to freeze up and give him the chance to attack. I'm sorry, I can't believe me. Not to mention, since Mina here has my poison on her clothes like Tokoemi, and hasn't created an armor of acid on her back, she's going to get poison like him. Naruto explained as he noticed Mina's legs go completely weak, and her fall to her knees collapsed on the ground like the rest of the class. Momo was alone now. All of her classmates were defeated. But the antidote was fake. Mirko was never in danger. Then why did you do this? Momo asked desperately, since he had to have a reason for doing this to all of them. Naruto took a knee in front of her, and his yellow eyes locked onto her black ones. Oh Muffin Top, I'm Kurama, I don't need a reason to prank people. Naruto told her jokingly as he pat the top of her head. Naruto got up and started to walk away. This didn't work. This type of training wouldn't help him stop relying on his quirk, meaning he was no closer to finding a way to protect himself against Himiko better than before. I'm a failure. Damn it, she sounded broken emotionally. You're not a failure, you failed, that is it. Despite what everyone thinks, heroes are human too, and humans fail sometimes. Every hero who has gone against me has failed, but because they believe in themselves, they use their failures to improve themselves, so be a proud failure and use this as a chance to learn so that next time we meet, you'll win. Naruto turned his head and spoke to her. She sounded broken, too broken for his liking. The rest of the students were scared, but this girl had taken it far worse than the others seemed to. He didn't want this to ruin her dreams. He didn't want to cause permanent damage. I can't beat you, no matter how hard I try, don't mock me. Just a few days ago, I lost to a girl that utterly destroyed me. I might have beat her in the fight, but that was only because I did something I hated, and used violence against a woman. As far as I'm concerned, that girl could have killed me at any time. I'm a failure too, but look at me, I'm trying to get better, so it doesn't happen again. I, Kurama, am a proud failure. Naruto admitted to Momo everything that had led to him coming at the class today. He saw a shock fill her eyes, before they widened, and he saw something else in them as she gazed at him. The unshed tears that had gathered at her eyes, she wiped them away and smiled at him. I'll get better and capture you, Kurama. I'm a proud failure too, so watch me. Good to hear, because talent and practice are pointless for people who don't have the guts to never give up. Naruto cheered her on, and she nodded her head as he tensed up his legs and jumped away. He left Momo alone, surrounded by her down classmates, her eyes sparkling with admiration as she looked at Kurama vanish from sight. With Naruto. Good thing class for them was outside, so the other teachers would just think the fighting was a training routine. Naruto spoke lowly as he crawled through the bathroom window while using his quirk to be cloaked from the cameras outside. Naruto got into the stall with his clothes and started to change into them. He had failed. He hadn't grown any stronger or better because of his training exercise, so he needed to think of something that would actually help him grow out of his weaknesses. At this rate, he would never improve. Chapter end. Kurama age? Possibly 15 to 17. Height, 166 centimeters. Quirk, poison related? Kurama is a villain that uses mental warfare and baits heroes into doing what he wants them to do, and takes advantage of a quirk that allows him to defeat enemies by touching them once. Through person experience, he seems able to change the danger level of his poison. Based on how short he is, not that I'm one to judge, and his voice, he could be around my age. He seems to have a deep understanding of the human mind, or at least, he has a talent for analyzing people and figuring them out. He's able to notice small details, and can use those details to form multi-layered battle plans on the fly. Deku spoke to himself as he sat at his desk, writing a new entry into his hero journal, one of many, this one having a hand-drawn picture of Kurama himself in it, in costume of course, with a written description. Deku compared the entry to the entries to other heroes that Kurama had taken down, and started to compare the physical abilities between Kurama and those heroes. On his computer screen, he was watching a video of Kurama dodging Mirko on repeat, and in another tab, he had the saved video from when Kurama beat Class 1A a few days previously. He had managed to get All Might to give him a copy of the recording, for the purpose of studying where he had failed and analyze Kurama some more. The doorbell rang. His mother would get it, she was awake and downstairs, so it would make sense that she got to the door first. Anyway, he wasn't expecting anyone to be showing up, so it wasn't like this was going to be for him anyway. Izuku! Deku nearly collapsed when his name was shouted, and his mother sounded shocked for some reason. Getting up, he ran out of his room at top speed, and saw his mother was collapsed at the open door, looking at it in shock. Hello, I'm sorry to drop by unannounced like this, but I was wondering if you could help me with something, Midoriya. Momo spoke to him when she saw him, in her casual clothes that looked to be high fashion, and she even had a small cake box with her, showing that despite coming unannounced, she hadn't forgotten her manners. A GI girl is here to visit you. A GI girl? Deku was like his mother, in a state of shock that a girl from his class was visiting him, at his house like this. Momo just smiled awkwardly when she saw that he seemed to be in a state of shock. Oh Yairose. Deku commented with look of dawning, when he realized it was one of his classmates more heavily. PL, please come in. Inko got up and gestured for her to come in. I was actually wanting to speak with Midoriya about training together, since the other day he showed he was highly intelligent. Momo didn't know if Inko knew about the Kurama attack at the school, since the event had been covered up like the first one was. Nobody wanted to admit to Kurama having broken in the school, let alone the fact he was able to get into the school twice. Deku calmed down. Oh, training, I'm free for that. I've already finished my homework, but our quirks don't seem like a good fit to train together. Your creation allows you to turn the fats in your body into items depending on your knowledge on their molecular composition, right? Deku asked her, since her intelligence-type quirk was an ill fit for training with his battle-type quirk, considering he could seriously hurt her just by using his quirk, and he would hurt himself just as badly as he hurt her. Momo was a little off-put by his knowledge of how her quirk worked, since he had only seen her use it a little in class and she had never gone into explicit knowledge of it. Still, his analytical abilities when it came to heroes and quirks was just what she wanted. Momo followed after Deku as they went towards his room. It dawned on Deku that a girl was going to be visiting his room, and he started to nervously sweat, a fact that Momo ignored. Actually, instead of training our bodies, I was figuring that we could train our minds instead. The other day I found myself lacking, but I want to improve. Your performance was amazing though. Momo explained as he opened the door to his room, his mother leaving them to their business, and Momo was a little weirded out by all of the All Might stuff in the room. There was a ton of it, but she put it to the back of her mind. A girl is in my room, Deku thought, before shaking his head. Bukoff, but my plan to take him down Kurama failed. He beat every single part of my plan down. Why would you want my help? Deku asked her, and she saw him gesturing to sit down at the spare chair next to his computer. She saw his notes on Kurama and several other heroes, as well as videos on his computer were playing images of Kurama against themselves and Mirko. You and Bakugo are both highly analytical, but Bakugo is too unstable of a person for me to work well with. Not to mention, even though your plan failed, you did more than me. All I did that entire fight was cower in fear, get overcome by self-doubt, and break down crying at the end. Kurama played me for a fool that entire fight. Momo had come to terms with the fact that she had been completely humiliated and used during that fight. She had felt odd whenever she thought about Kurama, be it the tightness in her chest, or the warm feelings in the pit of her guts that twisted when she remembered how gently he treated her at the end of the spar that the class lost in. Well, he is Kurama, sure, I'll help you train. How are we going to train? Deku asked as he sat down next to her, and started to clear away his desk. He nearly put up the journal with Kurama's entry open, but Momo stopped him as she placed the cake down on the table. She opened her purse up, and she showed a glass vial of a white liquid. She rolled up her sleeve, and her body glowed a little as a microscope and analytical equipment came out of her body. Is that? Deku was stunned when he saw a vial filled with a dangerous-looking substance that they knew too well by this point. I did my best to get as much as I could, but it dries up really fast. This was on Ashido's gym uniform, and it's mixed with her acid to keep it from drying up. I've already examined the chemical composition of her acid though. Momo spoke as she looked at the vial. Inside of it was Kurama's poison. Nobody had ever been able to gather any of his poison before, because it always dried up before anyone could collect any. By the time the poison faded away and people could move again, it was already out of their system as well. Nobody had been able to study his poison before now, but thanks to Mina and the copious amounts of poison that had been mixed together with acid, she had enough that she could study it. Deku held the vial gently, taking it from her and eyeing it with wide eyes. How is this training though? Deku asked her, and she nodded, setting up their workstation at his desk. I just want to talk with you about battle strategy, so that we can hone our minds together, and while talking with you about that, we can try and figure out Kurama's real quirk. Since we've seen him fight in person actually fight, we can use this. If we can figure out his quirk, then no doubt our minds will have been sharpened. Let's use this training session to focus our minds on becoming heroes. Momo was absolutely bubbly as she spoke, a pink aura of girliness and bubbles practically surrounding her. You're making an odd face. Deku's face was scrunched up, unable to take her raw bubble aura and girliness, his insecurities flaring up and nearly putting him into a self-induced coma. Am I? Okay then, let's get started. I noticed that when Kurama was countering my battle plans, he seemed to work around my plans. Deku changed the subject away from his face. Yes, but when I looked at the recordings myself, I actually found the flaw in your plan. You used your knowledge on watching Kurama on TV to your advantage. You see though, Kurama is used to being chased by heroes who have knowledge on how he fights. Your plan was similar to how many heroes would have gone at Kurama, and he used his experience to counter it. Momo explained away the more basic flaw of his plan. His plan had been amazing and multi-layered, but that was a type of plan that Kurama had experience with both using and having it used against him. Deku hummed in thought and grabbed his journal, writing down what Momo was saying in it, taking notes. I see, and Kurama used his ability to play on people's emotions in order to make us do what he wanted us to do. Instead of countering our plans, he put us in positions where instead of beating our plans, he forced us to act like he wanted us to act. Instead of planning, I would compare what he did closer to mind control. He knows how people think, so he acted in a way that would get us to act in a way he could take advantage of. Deku agreed with her, and thinking on what she was saying, he could see in the video where Kurama always seemed to act, and then wait for them to act in return. Instead of pressing the advantage, he turned his defensive skills into an offensive skill, not that he lacked offense either. Momo was still analyzing the poison, and drawing a sketch of what it looked like under the microscope, ignoring the acid that was slightly mixed into it. His poison was highly acid-resistant, meaning it had a strongly held-together molecular structure. Yes, Kurama's ability to create intricate battle plans is amazing, but what is more amazing is his advanced knowledge on how people think and feel. When he would go against Kaminari, he played on my fear and he figured that I would create a strategy for why Kaminari's quirk would hurt all of us instead of making an actual strategy. His strategy was to emotionally manipulate us into acting how he wanted us to. Momo explained as she glanced at Deku. When battling Kurama, keep a cool head, don't allow your emotions to get the better of you. Take into account that he could be playing with your head, to make you act a certain way. For a poison quirk, his mind is more dangerous than that. How would we use this in combat though? Deku asked Momo as she lifted her head up and put a hand to her chin in thought. She looked at what he wrote again. Instead of keeping a cool head, I would fake, when battling an enemy who manipulates emotions, fake your emotions. If you're feeling angry, act like you're excited. That way, when the enemy tries to manipulate you, you can take them by surprise by not acting how they expect. Momo spoke as an in general rule, instead of just fighting with Kurama. This wasn't just training about how to fight Kurama after all, this was training to improve their minds, and how to deal with other villains by using Kurama as a focus of their training. By observing the battle that they lost at, and seeing where they could improve with their battle plans, they could create better plans in the future. Kaken was the first one to get taken down, because he attacked Kurama in anger, as revenge for the cross-dressing thing. But if he had only acted angry, and kept a secretly cool head, maybe he could have acted in a way that Kurama hadn't be expecting. Deku analyzed the beginning of the battle again. By the way, how are you doing after Kurama messed with your head? Deku asked her in concern. She had been really messed up during the battle. Out of everyone in the class, she and Mineta had been the only ones to completely freeze in fear. She had been frozen in fear the second Kurama had outsmarted the original takedown plan. I would say no, but I'm going to be honest, Kurama really helped me. Despite being a villain, he's an extremely respectable person. He took time he could have used to escape, and helped me work through my fear. During that fight, nobody was a bigger failure than I was. I let everyone down, due to my inability to believe in myself. Thanks to some of the kindest words I have ever heard though, I'm going to use my failure, and use it to inspire the day I win. I'm a proud failure. Momo spoke with a wide smile, her cheeks dusting a little pink when she spoke and remembered that tender moment. Despite being a villain, If she said that she wasn't fond of what Kurama did for her, she would be lying. I get what you mean. Kurama doesn't seem evil, or even bad more than his quirk. I want to understand his motivations. What he does is mostly harmless, but... But? Momo asked with a curious glance at him. But we can use that. Kurama is a villain we can fight over and over again, without fear of dying. We can use Kurama to see how far we have come as heroes. Deka stated, and Momo nodded with a smile. Anyway, I noticed that in your plan, you relied on the villain's reactions to certain stimulus. You counted on him guessing that Ida would act like Ingenium. That was a flaw. You made an assumption. Momo corrected where she had seen that part of the battle. He nodded and looked at the video. You're right. Any ideas on where I could have changed the plan? Deka asked her for her opinion, since by her pointing out his mistakes, both of them could improve. He would avoid those mistakes, and she could create strategies and increase her battle planning as well by creating possible situations. I would have had Mineta ride on Ida's back using his quirk to take Kurama by surprise, and hopefully stick part of his body to the ground. I see, and with his small size, Ida's larger body could hide him easily enough. They had a lot of training to do. With Kirishima Sato Mishiro. Hit me harder! Kirishima shouted out as he trained with two of his fellow students, both of them using their quirks to attack him. Sato was overloading on sugar and increasing his strength to max, before collapsing from exhaustion, a lot dumber. Mishiro, on the other hand, was slamming his tail against Kirishima while practicing martial arts. That way Sato could increase the limits on how much sugar he could take, Mishiro could work on using his tail more and strengthening it, and he could work on his hardening quirk and increase how hard his body could go. He took all of their hits and tried to stay as hard as he could. Being defeated so easily by a villain, it had left a bad taste in all of their mouths. They hadn't even put up a decent fight, and it had been a 20 versus 1 matchup. The only person to touch Kurama was Todoroki, and Kurama easily broke out of his ice. Kurama allowed Toru to grab onto him, so that he could use her to block a hit from Mishiro. Can I take a break? We've been at this for like 40 minutes. Mishiro asked while panting, having a hard time going on. After nearly a full hour of training his hardest with these two, he just couldn't keep up anymore. Sato punched Kirishima in the face, and cracked his hardened skin, returning part of his face back to normal. Beat my ass until I can't take it. I want to become harder. I think we should take a break too, Sato said with slightly pale skin when he heard Kirishima say that in that tone of voice. It was one thing to shout out things like hit me harder and again when training, but beat my ass until I can't take it, and I want to become harder were things you didn't shout to another guy while they were sweaty and shirtless. My brain isn't working so good now and I'm tired. Want a nap. Sato was feeling the side effects of using his quirk kick in. Eating sugar for amazing strength, but becoming dumber and sleepy after he used his quirk, so he needed to increase his tolerance to his quirk and sugar in general. That was really gay sounding. If Kirishima didn't send awkward glances at Yayorozu's boobs, and look away awkwardly, I would assume he was gay after hearing that. Good thing this is his backyard. Mishiro sat down and took his much-needed rest after all of their training. They had been doing this training for a few days, and they hadn't really been making great progress or anything like that. Results weren't instant after all, but they felt that if they worked together, they could at least improve their fighting abilities enough to not get instantly taken out by a serious villain. Kirishima went completely normal and collapsed on his back to rest completely, so that he could get his own energy back faster. It was quiet for them. They needed to just get their breath back, so that they could get back to fighting each other. They didn't have anything to really say there, they didn't know each other that well just yet. None of them really had anything in common, after only being classmates for a little while. They just knew their quirks were good for training together, that was about it. Does anyone else think that Denki's head always has, like me, channel music playing in it? Kirishima asked the other two with a grin on his face. The cool guy of the group, Denki, seemed cool, but he also seemed like he was only pretending to be cool. Under that, Kirishima was pretty sure Denki was just a big idiot. That is kind of you. Guilty. Sato admitted that he had thought that Denki seemed like an idiot, and that maybe he had music playing in his head all the time. Not me channel though, I think that Denki's head has Baby Shark playing in it. Sato gave his own alternative to what music went on in Denki's head. Mishiro looked at Sato with a raised eyebrow, before he raised his hand up. Space uniform. Mishiro admitted to his own idea on this topic as well. Kirishima and Sato looked at him, and pointed their fingers at him in total agreement. The three of them started to laugh together, since when they heard what Mishiro stated, they had to agree that his idea was way funnier than their own. Now what song do you guys think he thinks plays in his head? Mishiro asked with a grin. Oh, good one. Master Exploder, Tenacious D. They answered together. With Denki and Jairu. Ayo, this hurts a lot, Jairu shouted out as her entire body spasmed uncontrollably. She had her earphone jack stuck in both of Denki's ears and she blasted her heartbeat into his body to increase her ability to produce sound while getting shocked. Because he was shocking her at the same time, to increase his ability to shock people while under physical stress. Aya. I don't not need a microphone, my voice is fucking powerful. Denki tried to act cool by singing a song while getting blasted with sound. Her earphone jacks retracted when she couldn't take his shocks anymore, and he fell onto his ass holding his bleeding ears. How did you like that? Denki asked Jairu. She had collapsed onto her ass as well. I think your singing sucks, and that was the worst Tenacious D impression I've ever heard. We're here to train, not play around. Kurama humiliated all of us, and I don't want to get taken down like a total bitch again. Jairu wanted to keep her focus on training, since that was why she had asked Denki if she could visit his home after school. He was the only one with a quirk that could help her in this way, and he was the only one dumb enough to agree to getting blasted by sound waves repeatedly for an entire training session. Man, you took that loss way hard, huh? You're damn right, Kurama destroyed us. What? Why did you ask me a question, when you can't even hear the answer? Jairu had a hard time believing a person this dumb could actually exist in a hero class. She wasn't that smart herself, but at the very least, she wasn't as dumb as Mina and Denki. They were the dum-dums of the class so far. Thankfully, no, thank God that was the case, and she wasn't nearly as stupid as the two dum-dums of the class. Training with Denki was already frustrating. From now on, she was going to go and train with Mina, Tsuyu, and Siro. Those three had quirks that didn't make training together easy for them, but at least, other than Mina, she would be surrounded by people with something resembling intelligence. Actually, she didn't know how the three of them were going to train together, since their abilities just didn't match up at all for good training. Meep, I can hear again, man. You took that loss way hard, huh? Denki asked his question again with a wide grin. 20 of us versus one of him, and we didn't do a damn thing to even hold him back. We were all pathetic, no matter how you look at it. That pisses me off, and he barely even had to try to take us out. Jairu stated as she balled her hand up into a fist and pushed it against the ground. It was harder for her to admit, but she had been one of the ones who hadn't been able to do anything. Kurama's flesh was too dangerous for her, since her quirk involved her physically touching people with her body, when she wasn't using her hero equipment. I mean, he was Kurama, we didn't stand a chance at all. I just thought it would look uncool to walk away. Heroes gotta be cool, anyway. I can't look uncool in front of such a cool dude. Denki explained with a thumb points at himself. Jairu paused and looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Cool Kurama? You know, the guy who Jairu blushed a little when she remembered the little fact that Kurama had stripped her butt naked and switched her clothes with Deku's clothes. She had learned what type of underwear that Deku wore for starters, which was a little embarrassing, and second was the fact a boy had seen her naked body. She would think that he touched her, if he weren't Kurama, and thus it was unlikely he did anything actually bad. Stripped us naked and made us all cross-dress. Jairu continued her statement as she blushed more heavily. Some people brushed that part off, but facts remain facts, and Jairu was conflicted, since before the first attack, she too thought of Kurama as the coolest villain. Actually, she still thought of him as cool, and she hated the fact that she thought he was cool. Still, the fact remains that he saw her with and without her panties, and what was worse was the panties she had been wearing that day. They had been her Kurama panties. Since, as a hero candidate, she couldn't afford being seen wearing the Kurama line of outfits and clothes, she had gone more discreet with what she wore. She had bought herself a matching bra/panty combo set that had top villain written on it, with a chibi version of Kurama's head on it. He had seen those panties, and what was more embarrassing was the fact that she couldn't wear them anymore because not only had Kurama seen them but so that Deku as well. That isn't that bad. I mean, compared to people like Yayorozu and Mina, Kurama wouldn't be too focused on your bow. What are you doing, GH? Jiraiya used her quirk and Denki learned that some things needed to remain unsaid. Her cheeks were furiously red as she blasted her heartbeat full force through his ears, not even training at this point. She covered up her chest with her hands, glaring at him for the reminder that she had small boobs when compared to all of their classmates. She was done training for the day, at least with Denki. With Mina to see Siro. Siro is surprisingly fast with his tape. Tsuyu thought as she jumped on all fours, the only way for her to get all of her power into her jump. Since they couldn't go to school to do this, and since they couldn't use their quirks in public, they were forced to train at Tsuyu's house, since her place had the most space to it. Seeing as she had a good-sized family, her house had a backyard big enough for them to do some close-quarters training. Just don't destroy anything, and be careful about the grass. She already told her parents that she would use her allowance to buy the grass seeds so that she could replant any grass that Mina's quirk destroyed. Their training wasn't going to be destructive, they were just increasing the speed that Siro could use his tape, while also increasing their own dodging ability. Come on, Siro, gotta be faster than that to get me. Mina taunted in a sing-song voice as she skated around the backyard using her slime, having taken her shoes off so that she could move around freely. She had bits of tape stuck to her body from the times where Siro did get her. She and Tsuyu both had shredded tape on their bodies. Torn in Tsuyu's case, and melted in Mina's situation, but they weren't training for direct combat. They were training escape and capture. I wish the spatial awareness part of my quirk were stronger. It would be great to be able to not need my eyes to dodge things as much. Tsuyu thought as she saw tape coming, and jumped so that she was sticking to the side of her home. She saw her sister in the house from her window, the window that was open. You spelled that wrong, it has a silent K, Tsuyu explained to her little sister, who was surprised by the sudden words. Tsuyu had tape wrapped around her waist, and she was yanked off of the window, and roughly hit the ground. Thankfully, she was moderately durable enough to withstand it with only a little pain. Ouch! Mina said for her with a wince that allowed Siro to catch her too when she was distracted. She was yanked backyards so that she landed on her back. She let acid drip from her hands onto the tape, and broke herself free instantly. Tsuyu nearly used her tongue to rip the tape and crawled back to her feet. Dude, you look like you came out of a desert. Mina explained as she looked towards Siro to compliment him on catching them, but noticed that he seemed very dehydrated. His skin looked like he could do with some serious water. Well, it isn't like I magically make tape, I use stuff from my body to make it. Also, this is really bad on my elbows. Siro gestured to his elbows, the part of his body he shot tape out of. He couldn't magically produce an infinite amount of tape, going over his limits could kill him if he wasn't careful about it. Tsuyu looked at him with concern in her mind, but not on her face. Oh, so that is how your tapey thingy works. If I make too much acid, it starts to hurt me too. I lose my resistance to my quirk if I overdo it. Gotta get some rest when I do to get that goodness back. Mina collapsed on her butt, and she wiped the acid off of her feet. She showed that her feet were dripping with thick fluid, but underneath it her feet were clearly irritated. Her purplish-pink skin was showing signs of beginning to burn away. Siro didn't comment, he was given a few of her feet dripping with a thick, white fluid, while she had her legs spread out. It was an subconsciously erotic image. Yeah, I think we should break for a bit. As to you, can we order a pizza? I'm sort of hungry. You two can stay for dinner if you want, my parents won't be home tonight. We can train some more after. Tsuyu offered both of them. She had worked up a killer sweat herself, and though she didn't show it, she was hard on breath. Mina was the most fit of them, and she had worked up a light sweat herself. Siro would be sweating, if his body weren't so dehydrated, not to mention he didn't do any running around. He was increasing the speed he launched his tape and how accurate he was with it, that was about it. Ah ha 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 ha, sounds fun to me. I'm a little tired, we've been at it for a while now. Mina was cool with taking a break, she needed to wait a bit before using her quirk some more anyway. She unbuttoned her shirt, and though Siro wanted to look, he turned his eyes away. Oh, don't worry, I'm wearing a sports bra, dude. Mina took her shirt off without much of a care, since she wore crop tops all the time anyway. This was still about her usual exposure level. My touch is poison. She is wearing a Kurama sports bra. Didn't know she was a fan of his. Cyril thought when he saw the chibi head of their recent villain encounter in front of his view. Her left breast had the chibi face, while her right one had the words on it. It was done in fancy, curvy letters though, and in its orange color, the black letters seemed more dangerous. "You're his fan?" Cyril asked with a curious glance. Poison touch. He seems to have spatial awareness, strong legs. So you saw Mina's bra. She didn't know they made Kurama-themed bras since she hadn't been underwear shopping in forever. Her bra made her think about Kurama's poison touch, and how it didn't seem to make sense with the rest of his shown abilities. Not to mention, he can change his body color to match his surroundings. His quirk, it sounds like mine. Tsuyu thought to herself with a frown starting to show up. Yeah, when Kurama took down Empty Lady Bubble Girl, I had to admit joined the fandom. It was really cool and super scary when I had to fight Kurama. Seeing the news and being in danger were way different. Still though, if the clothes got his name on it, I've got them in my size. I totes ship him and Mirko together. Mina exclaimed with a proud smile, puffing out her chest in pride. Since his debut, nobody had chased him more than Mirko, and because of that, Mina shipped the two of them together so hard. He is slower than me, and he doesn't jump as high from what I saw, but he has also shown enhanced strength, not to mention the way he disguises his eyes. Tsuyu thought to herself as she thought on what she had seen so far. To the trained and untrained eye, it would seem that he was just using a poison on himself to boost his abilities. The fact remained that her quirk did similar things. She even had poison as well, but she didn't inherit a very strong poison. Her poison was only mildly irritating. Actually, she had almost all of his powers, even if they weren't very developed. Mina, did Kurama ever show any enhanced durability? Did he ever get hit by anything that would take down a person who isn't really durable? Tsuyu asked Mina, who had paid more attention to Kurama than she herself did. Her being a fan of the hot and trendy supervillain might just be able to confirm some things for her. Not that I know of, no hero has ever hit him before. Cyril answered without meaning to, since he paid attention to the news. I don't think so. I never actually saw a ton of footage of his crimes. I mean, he got hit by a truck once when he saved a dude. Mina scratched her head, and Tsuyu tilted her head. She didn't know he had gotten hit by a truck. Then again, she never really paid much attention to news on Kurama, despite him being all over it now. Tsuyu paused for a second. I think I might know who Kurama might be. Tsuyu didn't know absolutely sure, but if she was right and she knew what his quirk was, then it explained how Kurama didn't trip any alarms when he broke into the school. He didn't break any alarms, because he didn't break in at all. He was able to break in, because he was a school student. No way, who? Cyril loudly asked her in shock. She shook her head. I don't want to say, just in case I'm wrong. After dinner I think instead of training we should go pay Midnight Sensei a visit. I want to confirm something with a boy that lives with her. Tsuyu had a hunch, but if she was correct, then she might be able to confirm her theory. If she was right, then the person who called himself Kurama had the toad quirk similar to her own frog quirk. She knew of a student who lived with Midnight, a student with a toad quirk that her brother idolized as a cool guy from the hospital. Really? Mina asked with pure excitement. If she was right, then Tsuyu would be the first person in the school to figure out the first hero period to figure out Kurama's true identity. Can't you tell us? Cyril questioned her a little. If I say his name, and I'm wrong, then there is a chance we can ruin his reputation. Tsuyu didn't want to say anything unless she was 100% sure she was correct. Since accusing a person of being a villain was a serious crime, not to be taken lightly. If she came out and claimed that Naruto Uzumaki was Kurama without any sufficient proof, her idea on his quirk wasn't proof, since it could potentially be explained as him using his quirk to drug himself. I'll run a bath, so you two can take turns and get cleaned up. I'll make dinner, and take one myself before we all eat. What really sold her on her theory though, what she could not explain away with poison, was the fact that Kurama had been able to stick to the ground even though Ochako had got him with her quirk. She could make objects unaffected by gravity, meaning he couldn't use his poison to stick to the ground, since his poison would float too. If he had a toad quirk though, then he could indeed stay sticking. With Izuku/Momo. So, I feel that if you use your quirk to create a cannon, you can have it fire out nets instead of simple cannonballs, if you want to go for a capture strategy. Deku explained as he went over Momo's idea for a battle against a villain with a quirk that would allow for him to duplicate himself into smaller versions of himself. They were taking turns creating fake villains, and then picking 3 of their classmates at random and having those classmates fight the fake villain, using the idea for a battle strategy. Then, the other one would find the flaws in the battle strategy, and offer ideas for how the strategy could be further improved. Once the improvements were offered, they would argue for their own plan, or make corrections and modifications to the update's plans. This was how they were going to train. I see, a good idea in theory, but depending on how small the enemy can make himself, this could fail. If he can make copies small enough to go through the netting. Anyway, I'm not seeing this poison on the web. The molecular composition is very odd. It's not plant-based, and it isn't man-made based either. I don't see dangerous predators that use this poison either. Momo spoke as she looked through a list, online, of different chemical formulas for different poisons. She wasn't seeing Kurama's poison's chemical composition listed on any of them, so either his poison was entirely unique to him, or she was just having bad luck finding what it was. Coffee? Inko came into the room and offered the 2 of them coffee. Since they were studying, a good cup of coffee would help energize their brains. Thank you for the offer, but I avoid coffee as much as I can. Momo kindly rejected, despite rejecting it being slightly rude. I'll drink both. Deku didn't want his mother's offer to go to waste, so he took both drinks and sat them down. When his mother left, he looked at Momo curiously. You don't drink coffee? Deku asked her questioningly. Coffee contains a lipolytic enzyme. Lipolytic enzymes break down fats. For my quirk to work at its best, my body needs to have a good store of fats. I've got to keep a good balance between fat and muscle. Momo had a naturally slim figure, and she had athletic muscles because she worked herself out, but she was thicker than the other girls in the class because she also had more fat on her body. If I slim down too much, my quirk is less effective, but if I get fat or become overweight in general, then my athletic abilities and general health will drop. Momo knew that some people believe that she could become simply fat so that she could use her quirk more. To be a hero, you needed to have more than a good quirk. You needed to be both healthy and able to perform the job in all of its aspects. Yes, if she allowed herself to become fat, she could use her quirk more, but her health would suffer from it. She would get an increased chance of diseases, and just suffer in general. Instead of being able to use her quirk more, she would prefer to balance using her quirk less, with using it more intelligently and supplementing it with good athletic abilities. Well, you scored number 1 in the quirk appreciation test, so you've done a very good job. Deku analyzed her words. Her athletic abilities were outstanding in general, and with her quirk, she wasn't able to use it as much during that test. She had the best quirk in the class for a wide range of things, both in and out of battle. Thank you, Midoriya, but I can still improve. I have a lot of room to go. Even more so if I want to become a hero. Able to. Momo trailed off when she thought about Kurama. She wanted to become as great a hero as he was a villain. She wanted her ability to use her quirk to surpass his own ability to use whatever his quirk was. Deku said nothing, and just thought of his own desire to surpass All Might. Kurama's quirk, his quirk, he doesn't teleport or control electronics, so it would be impossible for him to get into the school without tripping alarms, unless he had help from a student. But more likely than that, Momo, when thinking on Kurama's quirk, suddenly realized that he seemed to be around their age and was already able to use his quirk on par, or surpassing pro heroes. Yet, his quirk did not have the properties to allow him to break into one of the most secure places in Japan. It's not poison, but something that simply has the ability to use poison. He uses it with his skin, so that rules out anything that uses fangs or claws. Toad, Momo and Deku said together when the idea came to both of them. It was a popular pet among many, a very poisonous toad that used a dangerous poison with its skin. Not only would it fit in with his poison, but it would also explain his other shown abilities as well. Naruto Uzumaki, Momo realized with a bright smile. He was the boy that Kurama switched her uniform with. He seemed to have about the same body type and jawline. Not to mention, when Naruto was giving her back her clothes, she had been able to see his blonde hair and hear his voice. Wait, do we have proof Kurama and Naruto are the same person other than having the same quirk? Deku asked, since this was a horribly large thing to say about a person. Wait, didn't Midnight bring him lunch? I thought I heard somebody mention that rumor. Deku muttered under his breath. Maybe they could ask Midnight, but this wasn't something they should ask at school, so they needed to visit Midnight where she lived. Let's go ask a teacher where Midnight Sensei lives, and talk with her about Naruto. With Naruto/Namuri, later. Naruto sat in a completely meditative position with Namuri standing right behind him, and he took a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Under the excuse of wanting to show off at the sports festival that would be coming up rather soon, all courses, not just the hero course, would be participating. Naruto had managed to get an excuse to have Namuri help him develop the spatial awareness aspect of his quirk. Or rather, trying to clear his mind. He couldn't turn off his spatial awareness. It was something he physically could not do, since his spatial awareness came from his skin and senses, so he couldn't turn it off. So, he was taking the other alternative. Instead of learning how to upgrade himself, he wanted to learn how to do something else. Empty his mind of all thoughts, to clear his mind like how Himiko was able to do when she beat his spatial awareness in the first place. Slap. I saw that twitch on your face. You just thought of something, young man. Namuri slapped the back of his head, and he twitched in irritation at being slapped. He sucked up his displeasure, since he asked for help as much as even that irked him personally. Naruto took a deep breath, clearing his mind. Ding dong. Ding dong, damn it, Naruto couldn't clear his mind with any distractions. Namuri gave the door an odd look, but she walked towards it anyway. She looked outside of the peephole, and saw that there were students from her class outside. She opened the door, and looked to see Tsuyu, Siro, and Mina were all at the door waiting. Hello, Midnight Sensei, sorry to interrupt you so late. Tsuyu bowed in apology. No problem, what brings you three? Sorry to interrupt, Midnight Sensei, but can you guys came here too? Momo asked when she ran up the stairs, and she saw some of her other classmates were waiting in front of the apartment as well. She blinked as Deku followed behind her, and he looked to see classmates there as well. No problems at all, what brings all of you here? Namuri was cool with them visiting. She didn't really understand what reason they could have, but they must have a good one. I'm helping Naruto right now, but feel free to come in. We actually wanted to speak with Naruto. Tsuyu looked into the apartment, and she saw Naruto inside sitting down and trying to meditate. Mina and Siro looked and saw Naruto as well, and they both started to become giddy when they looked at him. Momo and Deku blinked in shock. Naruto was here. They just came to ask Midnight about Naruto, not to actually confront him about his possible villain status. Naruto, are you Kurama? Mina couldn't stand it, and blurted out loudly. She couldn't hide her excitement at having the possible answer, and not instantly go to figure it out. She got no response from Naruto though, as he simply sat in a meditative position, taking deep breaths. Namuri raised an eyebrow. I'm sorry to say this, but Naruto can't be Kurama. He's just not skilled enough to be Kurama. He's training right now to try and improve his quirk. Namuri laughed off the question. Naruto couldn't possibly be Kurama. I think that Kurama's quirk is Toad, considering how similar his quirk is to my own. Tsuyu mentioned as she looked over towards Naruto to try and see if he would react to this. All evidence pointed to the fact that he didn't even pay attention to what they were saying at all. She would say more, but again, she didn't want to accuse him anymore without more proof. This was just to see if she could get Naruto to admit it himself. She wasn't confident when she saw his lack of reaction though. I analyzed the poison, and I think it might be related to toad poison, Momo stated, with Deku nodding in agreement. Naruto finally took notice. What is going on? Naruto asked when he noticed 5 members of Class 1A were standing at the door. He had zoned out while meditating, and Namuri didn't seem too pleased to see them anymore. Naruto got up and started to walk towards the front door. Who are you guys? Naruto asked with seemingly genuine confusion. Oh, you're Momo? Naruto asked when he looked at Momo. He would know who she was, since he met her in person as Naruto. Are you Kurama? Hey Naruto, for your training, how would you like a special sparring match? Namuri asked him with a smile on her face. I think you guys will have your answer and you can consider this a good training for the sports festival Naruto. Namuri offered them all. Huh? Absolutely everyone asked with some surprise to the suggestion. I won't explain why, but you'll have your answers. Mina, you're athletic, why don't you spar with him? Namuri mentioned to them all. How will this solve anything though? Momo thought to herself as she looked at Naruto. She tried to find any sign of shock, surprise, or even a hint that he was uncomfortable. Nothing. He just seemed a little confused. Actually, seeing Naruto confused instead of startled by this was something that unsettled her a little. If he didn't show a single sign of being caught, then it was possible that her theory was wrong. That she had jumped to conclusions too quickly, in which case, she would need to apologize heavily. What about me? Deku offered. Trust me, everything will be explained. Come on, let's take this outside. Namuri spoke with confidence as she led all of the students outside onto the grass. She looked at Naruto herself, and she saw him still confused about what was going on. Why am I being called Kurama? Naruto asked the other students with a tilted head. Oh, you don't need to be shy, Kurama. Zero pat Naruto's shoulder as they all walked down the stairs, and started to walk towards the grass. Naruto just sent him a confused look too, and he looked at the others. We believe, since you're a student with the toad quirk, that you might be Kurama. Tsuyu herself mentioned, and she watched his reaction. She was a little unsure when she didn't see any changes to his face that would suggest that he was feeling scared or startled by this revelation. Mina walked to one side of the grass, while Naruto walked to the other side. Namuri stood at the side with the other students, who were watching them with slightly unsure looks, though Zero and Mina both seemed confident that they were all right. His reaction, he seems genuinely innocent. Deku thought, the more he was seeing of Naruto in person, the less sure he was he and Momo were right. His voice and his body seem slightly off, not to mention his personality seems different too. He really seems like a completely different person than Kurama. Was I wrong? Momo thought as she watched Naruto carefully as he raised his fists up. Kurama didn't take up a fighting stance other than tensing his body. Tsuyu was silent. Naruto blinked before he smirked. I'm not going to hold back, just because you're a girl. I don't know what's going on, but if kicking your ass proves I'm innocent, let's do this. Naruto raised both of his fists up into a boxing stance. Mina blinked and her grin faded a little. Deku looked even more unsure when he heard Naruto say that, since after observing Kurama's videos so much, this was behavior that Kurama wouldn't show. His movements seemed untrained and sloppy, not to mention he was raising his fist against a woman. Even when faced with the best female heroes, Kurama never once raised a hand against not just women, but anyone. Combined with Naruto's genuine-looking confusion, he was more and more sure that they were wrong. Okay then, let's do this, buddy. Mina hopped back and forth on her feet. You guys can go whenever. This guy has some muscle, but I'm not weak either. Come on, Kurama, show me what you've got. Mina thought as she started to skate on her acid towards Naruto. Naruto started to run at her and pulled his fist back, and he threw a punch at Mina that she dodged with ease, ducking under it and doing a little twirl with a grin on her face. Naruto stumbled forward a bit, and she pulled her fist back. Gotcha! Mina slammed her fist into his stomach. Guh! Naruto leaned forward into the hit, spit coming out of his mouth as she lifted him off of his feet a little. His feet touched the ground again when Mina pulled her fist back, and she hopped up into the air and kicked him in the back of the head. Naruto stumbled forward holding the back of his head in visible pain. Ah! Mina spun around Naruto when he swung at her desperately, and she pulled back her fist with a grin. She punched him right in the nose, and knocked him clear off his feet with a bloody nose, onto his back. Yes. I did it, I beat Kurama. I won, I beat him, and he wasn't even able to do anything to me. Mina looked down at the unconscious boy that she just beat up. She saw his nose bleeding, and his eyes rolled into the back of his head. Deku started to think when he saw that Naruto seemed genuinely knocked out. You did not fake being knocked out. Not Kurama, Tsuyu thought when she saw something similar to Deku. She had watched the entire fight, and nothing about it seemed like it was being faked for the sake of making them believe that he wasn't Kurama. Tsuyu watched as Momo walked forward and looked down at Naruto for herself, and she put her fingers next to his neck, and she lifted his hand up and watched it fall limply. Momo frowned a little. Ah shit, we are so sorry for calling him Kurama. Is he going to be okay? Zero asked as he walked forward to try and help Naruto. Namiri waved them off with a smile. It's okay, Naruto will be okay. Naruto can't be Kurama, because Naruto recently got mugged by a villain and put into a really bad condition. Kurama would never get mugged by a high school girl. Namiri explained as she walked over to Naruto and leaned down, picking him up. Tsuyu and Deku winced when they saw Naruto completely limp on the ground, his head in a position that an awake person couldn't easily make their head go. He seemed genuinely knocked out. He's knocked out, his pulse is slow, and he isn't showing any response, he isn't Kurama. Momo stood up straight and said with a straight face. Will he be okay? Is there anything we can do to apologize for suspecting him? Momo's face was straight even when she said this. I'm sorry, Kurama shows abilities that were like mine, so I just thought I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for Naruto to get hurt. Tsuyu was visibly saddened by both the fact she was wrong and the fact that Naruto got so hurt. Namiri was using the sleeve of her sweater to wipe the blood from Naruto's nose carefully. He was out like a light. The Kurama who got ran over by a truck and a car, and kept on going, would never be knocked out by something like that. Mina was a strong girl, stronger than most of the boys in the class easily, but if Naruto was really Kurama, then he punch wouldn't have knocked him out this easily. Momo looked at everyone. I'm horribly sorry. Deku bowed to Namiri and Naruto, though he was knocked out. Yeah, we really thought he was Kurama. Siro was apologetic as well. I'll buy him a really nice lunch at the lunchroom tomorrow to say sorry. Mina put both of her hands together and practically pleaded for forgiveness. Tsuya had already apologized, but she kept bowing low. Momo frowned. He really is Kurama, but now I'll sound crazy if I tell anyone. He's turned everyone into a witness that he really isn't Kurama. If I explain what he did, then I'll sound like a conspiracy theorist, Momo thought as she examined everything that had happened. Momo looked at Naruto, and she couldn't help herself, but a challenging smile came over her face for a moment. Naruto really knew how to manipulate people. Now, nobody would believe her if she claimed he was Kurama, because they had seen with their own eyes proof that he was not Kurama. She even figured out how he had faked his own loss like that. Later that night. Why my nose feels like it's fucking broken, that girl hits fucking hard. Naruto shouted when he woke up, rolling off the couch and onto the floor, holding his nose dramatically. He wasn't lying, that girl could really throw a punch, and she really did break his nose. He should have reduced the impact by flying backwards, but with Deku and Momo watching the fact, he couldn't afford to make himself appear even slightly skilled. He had to make himself look genuinely unskilled and sloppy. He even built up a massive amount of lethal poison in his mouth, and swallowed it when Mina possibly broke his nose. He gave himself a massive amount of his own poison, so large was the amount that not even he was immune to it. With his own poison, he knocked himself out, because he knew that no matter how badly he fought, they could assume that he was just faking it. He needed to actually lose the fight, and be turned into Mina's bitch for it. He needed to do something that would turn all of the people who saw the fight into witnesses that he and Kurama were not the same person. So getting his ass kicked and knocked out in an utterly humiliating fashion, a way that Kurama would never allow to happen, while also throwing a punch at Mina, would settle it for them once and for all that he wasn't Kurama. He didn't know how they had figured him out, but he was amazed by them. Those kids are pretty good, they actually figured me out, but I'm not somebody who can be caught that easily. Just figuring out my quirk? This makes this more fun. Naruto thought to himself as he kept his pained expression when Namiri came to him and started to make sure his nose was okay. With the pro heroes starting to ignore him, being a villain had become unfun for the most part, but people his own age had figured him out. The pros weren't even close to figuring him out, or even catching him. Things were getting fun. Oh, not just fun, they had challenged him, they unknowingly just issued him a challenge, and he was willing to play this game. Based on the fact that Namiri was genuinely concerned for him, he could tell that the students had bought his display of weakness. Now though, since they figured him out and he still beat them, he was going to have to rub it in their faces somehow. Actually, he needed to do more than that. He needed to further reinforce the fact that Naruto and Kurama weren't the same person to them, but he also needed to leave behind a clue that if they were smart, they had a chance to figure out his secret. After all, where was the fun without a little risk? Also OW. He was going to prank Mina so hard, because he was sure that she might have actually broken his nose with that last punch. Momo watched. Naruto Uzumaki and Kurama were the same person, she knew it without a shadow of a doubt at this point. She had no proof, of course, that would support her claims if she were to try to convince anyone, but she knew it to be true. When she arrived to UA the next day, she already knew that she was going to speak with Naruto, strive to at least, alone. She was going to let him know that she was going to personally get the proof that she needed to convince everyone that he was Kurama. Until she had her proof though, she wasn't going to tell anyone else about her suspicions. No, Midoriya, Tsuyu, Mina, Siro, and Midnight Sensei were too well placed as witnesses to prove any claims she made that weren't backed up with valid evidence that could not be disproven. Not to mention I already owe my improvements to him, and with how good he is at manipulating people's emotions and thoughts, this will be a challenging game. Momo thought to herself with a self-challenging smile, as bubbly as a challenging smile could be. He had managed to fool Tsuyu, a frog quirk holder, into believing that Kurama's quirk wasn't Toad anymore, and that he wasn't Kurama. Sometimes, even hard facts can be forgotten in the wake of shocking developments. Whatever Tsuyu knew about his quirk would have been shaken by the fact Mina beat him. Momo analyzed what happened the night before. The sloppy way he fought, so opposite of Kurama, and yet it seemed so natural to Naruto as well. Kurama's smooth, graceful movements had been the exact opposite of the way that Naruto moved last night. Kurama's unwillingness to hit girls, also the opposite of Naruto's willingness to fight Mina, even though he never actually touched her. The way he was knocked out with one strong hit to the face, even though he didn't fake being knocked out, contradicted Kurama getting run over by trucks and jumping it off. She too might have been fooled, were it not for Midnight speaking up about Naruto being mugged, a story that lined too well with Kurama admitting his own humiliating defeat. She was 100% sure that she was correct. Yamamo. Oh, Mina, good morning. Momo spoke when she saw one of the people in her thoughts come up to her with a large boxed lunch. I didn't know you would bring your own lunch today. Momo realized that Mina usually just bought lunch in the lunchroom like literally all of the other students. Oh, it's for Naruto to say sorry for the whole. Mina had the sense to realize saying the next thing out loud in a crowded hallway would be a very bad idea. So, she just nodded her head to Momo, who nodded back to show that she understood. Oh, Naruto. You're at school, I made a bento for you to say sorry. Mina called out to Naruto and ran over to him. Naruto turned to them. He smirked. Just so you know, Mina, when the sports festival comes around, I'm kicking your ass. Naruto told her as he walked over to them. I know your secret. Momo thought to Naruto, even though he couldn't hear her thoughts. He glanced at her, seemed a little confused, before a wide grin started to spread out on his face. She could see that he had a look. He was showing her a challenging look. A look that told her that he was offering her the chance to try to convince everyone of who he was. Good morning, I'm sorry about inconveniencing you last night. Momo apologized anyway to Naruto and bowed to him with reddened cheeks. This was still Kurama in front of her. You can try, but you've got a lot of catching up to do. Mina took the challenge with a smile on her face. No, if anything, we've got a lot of catching up, but I know your game. Momo thought as she looked directly into Naruto's eyes, and she narrowed her own. That's fine, I love a challenge. Oh, so he really was aware that she knew. Well, game on. Secret location. Wow, and to think a quirkless guy like me could get a job in a high-security place like this. For people without quirks, getting extremely good jobs in security and prisons was almost unheard of in modern society. For all of his life, he had worked on the police force, and he liked to think that he had always done a good job. Factually speaking, for him to get a transfer over to this island had been an amazing thing. First day? A female guard next to him asked him with a raised eyebrow. They all wore the same uniforms, both male and female. They wore pitch black uniforms, similar to police uniforms, but they had thick metal armor over their arms, chests, and legs. They also wore full facial helmets that kept them from seeing what anyone looked like. Not to mention nobody wore a name tag with a real name on it, they all just wore their code numbers on their helmets. He was code 910. She was code 235. Yeah, and I can't believe it. So, what do we do here? I was just told I was selected to be part of something important, and that the pay would be 5 times what I already make. 910 stated as he shifted his gun more comfortably. He had been given a gun that he did not recognize, that used ammo that he didn't recognize either. Instead of having bullets, the gun was connected to a fuel tank that he was wearing on his back. He was traveling with 235 in the company elevator, and they were going down, far down. "We are prison guards," 235 stated to him with a confident voice. "We are prison guards in the world's most secure prison in the world. You were chosen because of your skill that you displayed in the field, and your lack of a quirk," 235 stated with a chipper tone. He nodded his head. He had been told he would be filled in on the small details by whoever he was partnered up with, since the details of the job were something one could only learn while on the job. The fact this was a prison was something he was hearing for the very first time, and a prison where you were picked to guard it based on field data and status of a quirk sounded unique to him. The biggest part though was still the amount of money that he was making. How deep were they going? "So, you're my partner?" 910 asked her, and he saw her nod to him. "I was asked to collect you before I start my shift. Have you already visited the dorms?" 235 asked him curiously. Not only was the pay high, but they only worked 1 week out of the month, and while they worked during that week, they were given a place to stay on the island they were guarding. "Actually, have you already gotten your chip?" 235 wanted to make sure that he was safe to talk to. He shifted nervously. "You mean the thing they put in the back of my neck? What was that for anyway?" 910 asked her with a slightly put-off tone. "It's a curse chip, they call them. It scans everything you think about saying, and if it scans that you are about to reveal any secret information while standing nearby an unchipped person, it turns off your ability to speak and move until you stop thinking about revealing information," 235 explained to him, and because he did have his chip, she had been able to reveal that information. She just wanted to make sure, so that she didn't have to suffer from the effects of the chip. "This place is really secretive. What kind of prisoners are here anyway? Super dangerous ones?" 910 asked her with a laugh to hide how nervous her statements were making him. "You're incorrect. We aren't guarding prisoners. This prison was built for the sole purpose of holding only a single man." 235 spoke deeply, and even her tone sounded a little scared when she mentioned that fact. He laughed a little. "One man? Are we holding an evil All Might or something?" 910 couldn't imagine anybody needing an entire prison to hold them. She didn't respond to him right away, but he looked in her direction and saw her shifting more nervously. Like the fact alone she was speaking of this man would make a chill go down her spine. "You're serious?" 910 asked further, and she stood up straighter and nodded. "We, the best of the quirkless, were chosen to protect the world against a single man, the world's most powerful villain." 235 spoke with a uniformed, loud, and confident tone as she shifted her stand to look powerful as she spoke. As she spoke, the elevator door finally opened up, and they were introduced to a dark room. 50 more elevators in the same room opened up. They were in a dark room as they walked out, with only a single light on in the middle of the room, a light that was pointed at an iron box that was about the size of a person. Sticking out of the iron box was a head and 2 arms. The arms were chained up with 10 chains each, and attached to thick metal holds around the room. The head had long, flowing back hair that covered all of its features at the moment, but red dots covered the head and the arms, lasers that were pointed at the prisoner by automatic turrets attached to the wall on all sides of the room. Out of each elevator came 2 guards, adding up to 100 guards to surround this guy. Stepping into the dark room, 910 couldn't help but shiver as a cold feeling covered him. The room itself was chilled down to below freezing, but the feeling that ran down his spine wasn't from the cold. A dark, oppressive feeling covered the entire room, like being in the room alone was enough to cause an early death. "New guy, husso, new guy, prepare for a long 8 hours of nothing," 823 stated, male and larger than 910, as he walked over to a white spot on the floor, one of 100 spots, and stood in it. He took his gun and pointed it at the prison box, and he pressed the trigger. 910 noticed 100 guards were leaving the room by entering the elevators that they had all just exited, and when the elevator doors closed, they glowed red and locked themselves. 910 stood in a white circle next to 235. 823, don't be that way. 910, point your gun at him, and don't let your aim stray. These guns fire a special wavelength that can put a brain into a hypnotic state. We use these guns to keep the prisoner sedated. We can't afford to get too close to give him drugs. 234 mentioned as he took the spot next to 235, and he explained the process of what they would be doing. He himself also started to fire the blue wavelength at the man, and there was not even a twitch from the prisoner as the wavelength hit his prison box. 910 gulped and followed instructions. World's most powerful villain 910 whispered under his breath as he watched the man not move a muscle in the slightest. His arms are so skinny, and he seems like a weakling to me. This guy wouldn't even be able to hold a candle to heroes like Kamui Woods. 910 got himself hyped up for an easy job with a lot of pay. Yes, he wasn't scared in the slightest. Believe it or not, 20 years ago it took All Might, Gran Torino, Endeavor, and 9 other heroes to take him down. Only All Might, Gran Torino, and Endeavor survived. They couldn't kill him. That is why we're here. 235 spoke as she shivered. This man had been a secret villain, who had never once harmed a civilian, or made the news. He only ever targeted heroes and villains who showed any sort of promise. His quirk is the one who possesses all quirks, and his quirk is why we quirkless are chosen to guard him. Topak is a frightful quirk. 235 explained as she allowed her pulse to slow down. She couldn't let herself get frightened. 910 actually felt better though. I feel sorry for those 9 who died, but All Might, Endeavor, and the entire top 10 were taken down by a single villain not long ago, and that villain didn't so much as get a scratch on him. The title of the strongest villain has to go to Kurama, the top villain. 910 smirked under his mask when he realized that this job would be a lot easier than he had originally thought. There was a pause. Kurama? Who said that? 234 asked as he looked around the room, searching for the voice that he didn't recognize as any of his coworkers. Kurama-kun, Kurama-chan, what quirk do you have? Kurama-chan, what is your body like? Kurama-chan. He's speaking. 910 spoke with a tilted head as he looked at the source of the voice. The prisoner himself had started to speak. His voice was like a snake's voice, but it was like silk as well, but deep. Impossible, he has never spoke a word since he arrived here. He hasn't even moved a muscle. 823 spoke as he stepped backwards out of the white circle, before he quickly stepped back inside of it. He grabbed the gun at his waist with his other hand, and prepared to fire it as well. A yellow eye peeked out from under the black hair. My dear child, please, tell me more about Kurama-chan. Tell me, come and tell me. Open fire! 001 screamed at the top of his lungs, and everyone other than 910 grabbed a hold of their regular guns, and started to open fire. 910 flinched and jumped when gunfire started to fill the entire room up with sound. The prisoner's body erupted with blood as his head and arms were shot over and over again. Nobody even hesitated to fire on him. Now quickly everyone, switch back. While he is weakened, switch BA. A sword impaled 001 right in the forehead, going through one side of his helmet and out the other, with 001 being launched across the room and nailed to the wall by his head. Rude, your gunfire is blocking my ability to hear. Dear 910 story. Now tell me, dear child, what is Kurama-chan's body like? Is it tall, short, muscular, skinny? Is his quirk dangerous, powerful, mighty? Give me all the details I ask, and you may live. He killed 001. Everyone follow his final orders and switch back. The prisoner's mouth opened up, and a pale-skinned human hand clawed its way out of the man's mouth. Not only did a hand scratch its way out, but so did a dozen white snakes that started to crawl around on the floor. The turrets on the wall started to do their job though, and begun to fire at the man and his snakes. The snakes were blasted to pieces on the floor, and a second hand came out of his open mouth. The records never said that he could. In a flash, the snakes' corpses exploded and acid splattered all around the room, covering a large number of guards in acid that melt through their armor instantly, and through much of their bodies. Their suffering only lasted moments though, before they died as one would expect. Only 37 of them were left. The hands opened the jaw unrealistically large, and a second head started to come out of the mouth, before instantly, an entire man emerged from the mouth and stood on top of the prison box, leaving a shed skin of himself behind. He was wearing a full outfit that was completely unruined by anything, a white kimono with a purple obi around his waist. He escaped. Yes, 20 years of listening, waiting, and something quite interesting has happened indeed. So tell me 910, tell me about Kurama-chan, and you may leave here alive. Don't tell him anything 910, don't tell him a single word. 235 screamed as she got back up on her feet, and she pulled a glowing blue knife from her waistband. She grabbed it with both hands, and she bravely started to run towards the prisoner. Villain, you aren't going to escape, you're going back into that box, and we're going to sew your mouth shut. When she got too close, it was over. He shoved his hand through her armor, through her chest, and outside of the other side. With his other hand, he removed her helmet and showed a woman in her 50s with some wrinkles, and her hair starting to gray. You have no quirk, your body isn't one I want. He tossed her body to the ground as the light left her eyes, and he looked around the room. With a wave of his hand, snakes started to come out of his sleeves, and they wrapped around 910, who was frozen in fear. The prisoner started to turn around, and he looked around at the rest of his jail keepers. He's a monster. Only one person needs to live to spread message. A single sharp gust of wind, and every single guard in the room was blasted to pieces, their bodies turned into blood paste on the walls. You're a demon. Demon, no, I prefer snake. After all, I am Orochimaru, and once you have told me everything you can about Kurama-chan, you're going to go and tell the heroes that Yamada no Orochi has escaped and has his sights set on a new body. He couldn't wait to meet Kurama-chan. Momo stood in front of Naruto on the school's roof, 1 hour before school, with her arms crossed in front of her chest. She had been a little surprised when she got a note from him that told her to meet with him, but this worked in her favor anyway. He was just sitting down though, completely relaxed as she stood there, with a metal pole to fight against him. The air was awkward between them, completely on her part since he seemed completely relaxed, because she didn't know what he was going to do or say. Sup, Muffin Top, having a good day? Naruto started things off. Not what she thought he was going to say. She lowered her weapon. My day has been stressful, thinking about how to prove your Kurama. Can't think of any convincing arguments, you've fooled the others completely, but I know who you are. Momo stated to him with a more cooled down face. Him breaking the ice had reminded her that this might be a villain, but he was the villain least likely to respond to being confronted with violence. She was as safe, or even safer, than she would be if she decided to confront some heroes about the way they did things. Also, you're going to keep calling me that, aren't you? Momo wasn't exactly angry that he was giving her a nickname, but them having a serious conversation while he called her that nickname was going to be hard to do. I just think it's funny how a girl who could be a model has a bit of a muffin top. I think it makes you cute and bubbly. You've got chub but aren't fat. You that bothered by it? Naruto asked her with a raised eyebrow. It was an obvious nickname. Not overly so. Momo felt her cheeks turn red at the model comment and the compliments. Him not calling her an insulting nickname to be mean, but because he found that trait on her attractive was a little different. She thought he was just being insulting on something that most people would be ashamed of. She wasn't ashamed of it, but that was because she actually maintained a healthy, actual healthy, not body positivity healthy, figure. Momo blinked before she used her quirk. Reaching up, she started to make a slight show at fixing her brow, turning away from Naruto so that she could reach inside of her shirt to do it. Itchy titty? Naruto asked her, and she didn't respond. Anyway, Naruto, you know I'm aware of who you are, and you're not going to do anything to stop me from trying to expose you? What is in it for you? Momo asked him with a raised eyebrow. Him not doing anything but challenging her to try, that wasn't something a villain trying to keep a secret identity needed to do. Why are you even allowing me this knowledge at all? Momo questioned further. Naruto stood up, and he started to walk towards her. By instinct, she backed away from him, since he walked closer and closer to her. He stopped when he was in front of her when she was backed up against the door back into the school. You're perfect. I'm far from perfect. Momo corrected him, but she saw him smirk. You're perfect to have fun with. Since I'm the safe villain, the one who doesn't hurt anyone, the other heroes ignore me when other villains appear. I'm the top villain, but at the same time, I have such a low priority that I get ignored a lot by heroes who are busy with literally anything else. Naruto hated and understood the fact that other heroes were busy. He knew that they wanted to chase and try to capture him, but they knew and took advantage of the fact that he wasn't going to hurt anyone. He hated being ignored, he hated being bored, he hated people overlooking him for somebody else with a cooler power than him. When he was young, every other child his age got adopted because they had better quirks, quirks that didn't include a deadly poison that parents feared could be turned on them. I see. You are the first person, the first hero at least, who figured me out. I tricked the others, but you stayed firm in your belief. Naruto shoved his hand up against the door behind her, next to her head. She pushed up against the door harder, with a brighter blush blooming brilliantly across her bubbly cheeks. Momo would have moved, but his other hand shot up and slapped against the door on the other side of her head. The information all pointed to you. Momo felt a little heated when she felt how hot his breath was. His hair smelled sweet, his hair seemed to be washed with a similar scented shampoo as midnight, but it was manly at the same time. It was a thick kind of pleasant scent that her nose was allowed to experience. Each side of her head, she could feel the radiant heat from his body, and she looked at his hand, before she looked back at his face and turned her breath hitched when she saw his half-lidded eyes. Are somebody who went from a girl with self-confidence issues, a coward who couldn't handle the pressure, to somebody who could stand up to me. You did it all with just a little help. You're damn amazing. Naruto admired what she had done with her life in such a short time. He had seen her go from pure cowardice into somebody who had figured him out and planned on taking him down. When I think about this contest, this game between us, I can't see this being anything other than fun for me. Naruto leaned up, getting on his toes as he stared her in the eyes. Their faces were inches apart. What are we going to do now, though? Momo's breath was slow and heavy. Her breath stopped when his leg came up, and she found her crotch being rubbed by his leg, and her eyes widened when she felt a slight squish as her panties made contact with his knee. He wasn't even rubbing her actively, he was just pushing their bodies together. The tightness in her belly got tighter still, and she had trouble steadying her breath. Her panties got heavier as they started to get soaked in her own fluids. She wasn't stupid either. She was an intelligent girl, and she could tell what was happening to her based on the signs alone. She didn't need to question what was happening to her. Even if she could question why it was happening, there was no need to ask herself or anybody else what was happening. Her body saying her body made it sound like this was against her will, that her body was doing it on its own. She was aroused. I want to compete with you. I want you to give me everything you've got. Momo felt the tightness in her belly become nearly impossible to bear. Touch me. Momo wasn't an idiot, and even though she knew what was happening to her in a biological sense, not even her, with her intelligence, could control her hormones so easily that she could stop herself from submitting to her own human desires. Momo's eyes closed as she felt his breath on her neck, and she shivered with each breath he took. She was aroused, and she was growing more aroused as he teased her. Their bodies pushed up against each other, and Momo wrapped her arms around him, before she started to shiver as chills continued to go up and down in spine in turn. Every nerve in her body felt like it was being shocked with lightning. She needed to see where this was going to go. That was what she wanted right now. She fell to her ass though, her legs not holding herself up as Naruto pulled away just as his hand went into her shirt. As he pulled away, his hand left her shirt, and she felt her bra snap back into place from where he had pulled at it. Falling down on her ass snapped her out of her aroused trance somewhat, and she looked to see him grinning down at her. You really think I would assume you were just scratching your tit or fixing your bra? Your quirk lets you make things, including stuff that would record my voice admitting to being Kurama. Naruto explained to her with a massive and growing grin, seeing as he was holding a microphone that had been recording much of their conversation. Naruto held it between his fingers, having taken it straight out of her bra, before he gripped it in his hand hard enough to shatter it completely. What? Okay, the haze of arousal was getting cleared from her mind, and her eyes got very wide when she realized he had just broken the evidence that she had been trying to produce from him. She blinked and shook her head, useless as the gesture was since shaking your head did not stop rampaging hormones. Damn teenage hormones. You see, I'm not actually all that book smart, but what I am good at predicting what people will do and how they are going to do it. I'm really good at understanding people, and that is why I just know you are going to be really fun. Let's have a fun game. Naruto told her as he opened the palm of his other hand, and Momo blinked when she saw a blue cloth having from his hand, a blue cloth that was completely soaked at the crotch of it. Her panties. Her hand shot down to her skirt and pushed it down to cover her goods, though a useless action considering he had already seen her naked before now. My panties. Been a while since I got to do this and have fun with it, but it looks like Kurama gets away with yet another trophy against the hero. Naruto put her moist panties in his pocket. They would be the trophy he would most savor. No, he wasn't going to jack off, as being an entirely new breed of trophies won. Hero Public Safety Commission Headquarters. All Might. Endeavor. Hawks. Best Jeanist. Edgeshot. Crust. Mirko. Yoramusha. Ryukyu. Gang Orca. The top 10 heroes of the nation of Japan, the heroes who solved the most crimes, earned the most money, had the biggest agencies, and had the highest approval ratings amongst the Japanese heroes. They were the heroes who dealt with the biggest issues usually, though they weren't always the strongest heroes in the world, or in Japan, they all earned their spot in the top 10 for a reason. The fact that they had all been gathered at the main headquarters for the HPSC by the president herself, the president of the commission, not country, was enough to rattle some of the heroes. She was an elderly woman with sharp features and a calm demeanor as she glanced around at all of the heroes. The president took a deep breath as she looked at All Might and Endeavor, the only two people among the top 10 who had ever dealt with the problem that they were currently dealing with. The room was tense. Nobody dare speak, not even Hawks. All Might, Endeavor, I require that both of you remain calm when I speak. Madam President spoke with an air of importance. Endeavor just scoffed and nodded. This must be important, but why only mention the two of us by name to remain calm? All Might nodded as well, though he had to admit this was cutting into the 3 hours a day he could remain in this form of his. Orochimaru has escaped. What? Endeavor shouted as he stood up and slammed both of his hands down on the table, shattering the entire thing with his strength. The other heroes who were less composed jumped out of the seats lest they get table pieces all over themselves. Endeavor, what the hell? Mirko shouted as she looked down at herself, covered in shattered table. Who? Gang Orca asked with his brow furrowed in confusion. Best Jeanist just calmly looked at All Might, whose skin had gotten paler, and his smile had faded away completely. The other heroes in the room didn't know who this person was by name either, so they didn't have much of a visible reaction, other than to the shattered table that was. Orochimaru can have escaped. That prison was built in order to counter all of his quirks. All of the guards were quirkless so that the monster would never be able to grow stronger or have the will to escape. Endeavor shouted at Madam President with a roar of disapproval. As one of the 3 survivors of the man, he knew more than anyone what a monster that villain was. He growled down at her, as if it was her fault. Seriously, who was this guy with a name like that? I'm not thinking somebody that dangerous. Seems like a guy with a snake quirk, or something. Hawks seemed uninterested in what was going on. He's just one villain. He's stronger than me. All Might's words alone ended any and all discussion on if they should be worried or not. More strength than All Might in a battle, that alone was a terrifying statement for every single hero at the meeting. He's stronger than anyone I've ever faced. He's a sick, twisted person, who doesn't view humans as people. He simply views them as tools, batteries for his quirk. All Might gripped his fists together with visible anger on his face. Orochimaru's quirk was sick and twisted in nature, and in how he used it. Orochimaru was somebody that not even All for One had gone again, for fear of having Orochimaru's quirk turned against him. The man was a sick and twisted genius unlike any other, and his lust for quirks was as endless as it was perverse. You're not serious? Gang Orca couldn't believe that. That was a terrifying thought. Orochimaru is a villain who can't be killed, can't be held in a normal prison, and can't be defeated in one-on-one combat by any person who has a quirk. Madam President explained with a stern tone. She wanted them to know how dangerous this person was, considering the fact he was back, and still in the prime of his strength. He could be growing even stronger as we speak. She was forced to admit as well. So, we fight him all together then. Edshot spoke with more calmness to him. As a team, no way, that is cowardly. Mirko disagreed with that idea. Ed shot and Mirko shot each other dirty looks, before they looked away from each other when their attitudes started to affect the already bad mood of the room. His quirk, what is his quirk? Ryukyu asked, crossing her arms with a more practical look on her face. She looked between those with more experience than herself, All Might and Endeavor, both of whom didn't look like they liked the answer. His quirk is the one who possess all quirks, and it's not pleasant. All Might regretfully stated with a wince. He has all. No, he can possess all quirks. Orochimaru's quirk is the fact that he can fuse and possess people, stealing their bodies. He takes his quirk, adds it to their quirk, and takes their body, and then he adds their quirk to his own as he possesses body after body. He can possess quirk wielders. Endeavor frowned deeply with every word he spoke. All Might was shivering in anger. Nobody in the room had seen him show this fury before. If he is so powerful, why have none of us ever heard him? Best Jeanist had to ask, since this sounded hard for him to take in. Orochimaru is a villain who always acted in the shadows. He didn't want the spotlight, because he had no interest in money, fame, or to go against heroes for the sake of it. He only wanted to gain more quirks, and to change the world from the dark. Madam President explained to start why they hadn't heard of him. We, once he learned about him, decided it would be best to cover him up. They had made sure, because somebody with an obsession with quirks and getting the best body, going around in the dark was fearsome. People would never be able to sleep in their beds soundly at night if they thought somebody could just take them over forever. Only the heroes who fought Orochimaru had the knowledge of him, and that was how it was supposed to be. To make the world a more peaceful place, they allowed society to experience ignorance while they secretly fought the threat. Mirko was silent. So how are we doing this? Crust questioned, the first time he had spoke since the meeting had started. Yes, this fiend must have a goal he wants to achieve. Yoroi added on to Crust's statement. Kurama. Orochimaru wants Kurama's body, that is the reason he has escaped. Kurama, who could have killed all of you with his skill. Kurama, who has the skill and abilities to escape and outdo every single hero he has ever encountered. Madam President explained as a dense air settled over the room. He have to protect Kurama, Mirko shouted as she stood up. We need to kill him. Orochimaru can't possess him if he's dead. Endeavor gave a more final solution to their problem. It would only require one sacrifice, and then they could take this issue on at their own leisure, once they made sure they could actually take down Orochimaru. Mirko stormed across the broken table, and she was about to throw a punch. Endeavor, Orochimaru would seek revenge against us all if we did this, and his wrath would know no bounds. All Might pointed out surprisingly calmly. While his rage was still visible, his statement was logical, as if he was just saying it to confirm it to himself as well. Mirko, we've dealt with Orochimaru personally. Endeavor only said that because he knows what the worst-case scenario is. All Might stood up and put a hand down on her shoulder. The worst-case Kurama's quirk is powerful, but only because Kurama is so slippery and creative. Surely a guy that took years to escape prison can't be that bad, even if he got his hands on that quirk. Hawks couldn't see why they were worried. Kurama was only dangerous to any of them because of the fact he was extremely talented at manipulating people, evasion, and using his quirk in creative ways. Orochimaru would have none of that, so they didn't need to worry about it. Unless Orochimaru, when he takes over a person's body. Ryukyu started to mumble to herself, and Gang Orca picked up on her line of thought. He gains their memories, meaning their knowledge on how best to use their quirk, as well as any combat styles they used it with. Meaning, if this man gains Kurama's body, Gang Orca could suddenly see why Endeavor's solution was murder. Kurama had taken out all of them, with only a single quirk. This man, were he to take Kurama's body, his quirk, his skills and abilities, would become too much. He would gain Kurama's ability to come up with clever ways to defeat them all, and there would be no hero that could catch him. He wouldn't just have Kurama's quirk and skills, but he would still have those combined with all of the ones that he had attained in the past as well. It would be like they were going up against a super-enhanced Kurama, but with no morals and a desire to kill people. Kurama is in a lot of danger, I've got to warn him. Mirko thought with widened eyes, frozen in place even as she stood up. Kurama needs to be protected at all costs then. If Kurama is captured by Orochimaru, then that is the end. Orochimaru will become unstoppable, and it will begin the collapse of society itself. Hawks had changed his mind by the end of that explanation. Even he was serious for this matter, since this could spell the end of the world as they knew it. A person with a quirk like Orochimaru, using Kurama's quirk and skills with it, would practically have unlimited access to every quirk in the world and nobody would be able to put up a fight. How was he defeated last time? Yoroi asked All Might directly, since he did take part in the original defeat of the man. He could understand that they had trouble with the man, but he had to have been defeated using some technique or quirk last time. All Might didn't answer. We're not going to do what happened last time, too many lives were lost. We need to make a new plan to defeat him. All Might stopped Endeavor from speaking another word with a sharp look, a look that even Endeavor couldn't speak out against. The man just scoffed and turned his head to the side. So, we have to keep all of this a secret then, correct? Anyway, how are we supposed to convince Kurama to trust us enough to let us protect him? He might just think we're trying to trick him so that we can capture him. Ryukyu saw a big flaw in any plan they could make. Kurama's cooperation with their plans was what needed to happen, and she just couldn't see any of them getting Kurama to come with them. Not when he was a villain, and they were heroes. How did the prison fail? All Might winced when he realized nobody among them could convince Kurama to join them. Orochimaru had a quirk that we never knew about, and he was hiding it for years, waiting for the right time to escape. Madam President couldn't believe the fact that they had overlooked such a massive piece of information. They had made that prison taking all of Orochimaru's quirks into account, but the man had been too smart, he had allowed them to think they trapped him. He even waited 20 years in prison before making his escape, and that was just because he was finally interested in escaping after 20 years. How are we going to even find Kurama? It isn't like we have him on speed dial. Mirko, you don't have his cell number. Crust asked the only woman that had any sort of relationship with the villain, seeing as she wanted to be with him romantically. None of them held any issues with her over that. Love was love. I don't, but I do. Mirko looked highly conflicted with revealing this information that she was about to reveal. Her foot was tapping against the floor nervously, and she hated herself for everything she was about to say. I do know his age and I know his real eye color, and I have his body and scent memorized. Mirko stated with those words coming out of her roughly. She didn't like saying them. You've known all of this for how long? A while, but I didn't want to use the information because I wanted to catch him fair and square. He told me his age while he was in a bad place, so I didn't want to share it, and he isn't dangerous, so I thought it would be okay. Mirko revealed her reasons, reasonable to her, without being able to look at anyone. She would betray Kurama's trust in her by revealing all that she was going to reveal. Still, she was going to hate herself for this. Everyone stared at her. You had all of this. Endeavor, this isn't the time for this. Mirko, I understand your reluctance to tell of this sooner, based on your personality. Will you share this information with us now? Madam President asked calmly, though she wasn't pleased with Mirko either. All around the room, nobody was pleased with Mirko, since she had bit of useful information about the top villain that she had not shared with anyone. I can't do it after all. Instead, why don't we bait Kurama into finding one of us instead? Mirko offered an alternate solution. Nobody looked happy with her idea. They all, even All Might, looked displeased with her on a personal level. She winced when she saw that her own childhood hero was sending her that disappointed look. Actually, Kurama can change his looks, so even if she gave us that information, we don't know if his looks will match what she knows. Her idea though, baiting Kurama into coming to us. That idea has some merit. Ryukyu could sympathize with Mirko over why she was lying. She was in love, and even under this situation, she refused to betray the person she had fallen for. It was admirable, because she was pretty sure that Kurama would hate for anything about him to be revealed, even if his life was in danger. Anyway, we all know Kurama well enough to know that he's too slippery to be caught with just his eye color and age. We would have more luck finding a needle in a haystack. Ryukyu explained that Mirko's information would still be practically useless to them. Kurama was just that good at avoiding them all. He had been able to avoid them all for so long at this point, that he might even know right now they were looking for him. Kurama has attacked Yue twice since the new year. He might attack Yue again. All Might and Mirko are there teaching. They can warn him the next time he attacks. Gang Orca spoke as the voice of reason, understanding both sides of the coin here. They needed Mirko's information, but if she didn't want to give it for personal reasons, she didn't have to give it to them. Her mentioning it at all was annoying, but she admitted it reluctantly, so her willingness to part with it was iffy at best. She admitted to knowing it, but had a change of heart because she didn't really want to give it up. Still, I've had the police get a public announcement ready. Live television, all channels, with Naruto. Well, this isn't what I was watching on my phone. Naruto had turned his phone's television app on to see what was playing on the news, to see if he wanted to make a public appearance, when the channel turned to the chief of police. We are sorry to interrupt your regular broadcast, but starting now until further notice, new regulations will be put in place to ensure the safety of the citizens of this country. Oh, what you watching? A person asked. He recognized the voice as Mina, as she sat down next to him with her lunch. She put her chin on his shoulder, no personal space with this girl, and watched what he was watching. Don't know, the police chief is doing some kind of broadcast. I was watching the news, Naruto mentioned with a raised eyebrow. He switched channels, and all of them were the exact same thing. This must be important. Starting today, all minors will be expected to be at their homes before 6:30 p.m. each night. Any minor found out after hours will spend the night at the station for their own safety. All heroes will be expected to travel together in groups of 3 as well, and we suggest that if possible, all adults also travel together in groups as well. 6:30, Mina shouted in horror. She wouldn't be able to visit them all and stay for more than 10 minutes at most if that was all the time before curfew she was going to be getting. As a minor, hero student or not, she would be expected to follow this new law. Not to mention she was supposed to hang out with Tsuyu and train with her and Siro again, since they interrupted their training the other day. We understand if this is inconvenient for you all, and we would like to thank any who follow these temporary rules. These rules were placed for the safety of everyone. People started to pull their phones out, and soon enough almost everyone in the lunchroom were all watching the news like Naruto and Mina. They were watching the presentation of the new rules for themselves, with varying looks of shock and anger. Naruto, on the other hand, just snickered to himself, because there was no way that he was going to bother following that rule. There was no way that anyone would be able to force Kurama to go to bed early after all. Nobody could. Later that night. You're not going anywhere tonight, Naruto, since I'm your mother. Until whatever is going on is over, I'm going to be taking my afternoons off and making sure that you stay at home. Namuri explained as she placed her hand on his shoulder, and smiled down at him with a tender look. Somebody could stop him after all. Then you know what this is all about then? Naruto asked her with a raised eyebrow. She was a pro-hero. Whatever issue the police were dealing with, she had to have some kind of advanced knowledge on it. Since she was so keen to get into his good graces and be a proper family, he could tell that she would tell him. He looked at her hopefully, and she opened her mouth to answer. I honestly have no clue. I'm not one of the heroes who were told. Namuri answered with complete and utter honesty. Only the top 10 were told what was actually going on, and since she didn't have true pro-hero partners, she couldn't exactly follow their suggestions. She had her Midnight Boys, but they were just sidekicks, nobody powerful enough to really help her if something terrible happened. So, she would be doing her hero work before 6:30 from now on. She would focus the rest of the time with Naruto and grading homework. No idea at all? Naruto could tell she wasn't lying. Still, she was Midnight, she should know something. Just because I'm a pro-hero, doesn't mean they tell me everything. Actually, this might be good for us. Let's make this a game night, Namuri stated with a skip in her step. She could finally use this chance now that Naruto was going to be home for sure, to actually bond with him. Sure, he had asked her to help him with his quirk for the sports festival, but that was training. That wasn't a mother-son bonding activity. Game night? Yeah, it will be fun. We can play some games, take a bath together, and even do some more work with your quirk. Let's see if you can really do everything a toad can. Namuri got herself excited for this. It was about time that she finally took a bath with Naruto to get the skinship bond that her father had told her that she should try. She looked at Naruto, and she saw he was looking at her with a dull gaze. Can we skip literally all of that? Nope. Namuri was going to have to lay her foot down on this. If she didn't keep her eye on him, Then he was going to sneak out and do whatever it was he did when he snuck out. Did you know toads can change gender to fit their breeding desires? They can willingly change gender to fit their breeding needs. I did not know that, and I don't want to know if I can do that either. Naruto didn't want to see how that skill could come in handy. Naruto blinked before he saw many situations in his own head where being able to change his gender at the drop of a hat could come in handy for a villain like him. Nemuri saw his expression become conflicted. She whispered in his ear, "You know, if you can change gender, you can sneak into the women's side at the public bath, every teenage boy's dream." Nemuri was a sexually open person, and she knew that boys needed an outlet for their desires. She was sexually open and sexually active, but what was greatest about her when it came to that area was her sexual acceptance of others. She understood, and was willing to accept, men's more base desires and their need to follow after them. She was perfectly okay with the thought of men peeping, and if it meant bonding with her son, then she could even encourage it. You are a woman, encouraging a teenage boy to change his gender so that he can sneak into the girls' bath. Naruto just wanted her to realize that what she was doing was not very motherly, or maybe it was. He never had a mother, so it wasn't like he would know what it was like to have one. You can have lesbian sex. And like that, I'm more interested. Naruto gained a glint in his eye when he realized that as well. What guy didn't want to know what it could be like to have lesbian sex after all? Sex between a man and women was hot, but seeing as he liked women, sex between two women was even hotter to him. Nemuri grinned wide. That's my boy, you're becoming more open with your inner desires. Nemuri saw his face change when she called him her boy. He seemed less interested, and more neutral than before, but she realized at least she could find common ground with him. Anyway, changing your gender does have other benefits besides the obvious sexual benefits. I'll think of them later though. What game do you like more, Uno or Sari? Nemuri asked him, since those were the only games that she had that she could play with him. She liked Western games, they were quite popular among the youth of Japan as well, not just her, to be honest. How about blackjack? Naruto asked her, and she blinked before she grinned. Oh, she was going to teach her son a lesson. Later. A lesson about how he was so freakishly good at hiding his facial expressions. Blackjack, the game where the dealer and player played against each other with cards, to get the closest to 21 and not go over. Hit me, Naruto stated without looking at his cards, and she tossed a card to him. He looked down at his cards again, and didn't even flip them. Naruto was wearing his shirt, socks, and underwear. He had taken his pants off the first and only time he had lost so far. Hit me again, Naruto stated as Nemuri passed him another card. Nemuri, on the other hand, was in her bra. Just her bra and nothing else. She wasn't blushing or anything like that. It was her that suggested the stripping rule, since she didn't want Naruto to pick up money habits with gambling, and since she had started to give him an allowance, it would be weird to take the money back that she had given him. The carpets matched the drapes. Naruto thought idly as he thought about what he was doing to do next. Hit me, Naruto stated to her one last time, again without looking at his cards. Nemuri added one more card to her own hand. Let's flip, Nemuri told him with a grin on her face. They flipped. Nemuri, 10, 7, 3 to 20. Naruto, ace, 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 7 to 21. 4 aces and a 7 to add up to 21. What the shit bullshit luck is that? Nemuri shouted out as she jumped up and slammed her hands on the table, staring down at the cards that Naruto flipped up with a look of utter disbelief. She had one of her hands grabbing her hair as she tried to think up the odds of this type of hand happening. He used an ace as an 11, 3 aces as ones, and finally he drew into a lucky 7 and added it all up to 21. That was not only the literal perfect hand, but he got all 4 aces in the deck of cards in one hand, and he never once looks at his cards. He had just been going off of pure luck, and he couldn't have cheated, because she had been shuffling the deck, and she had been cheating herself. She had stacked the deck to give herself a 20, in a way that would be hard to beat, but wouldn't come across as cheating. She had been cheating practically the entire game they had been playing, and her cheating had only allowed her to win once. I'm really lucky when it comes to gambling. My luck sucks almost everywhere else though. Naruto didn't mention that earlier, because it had never once come up. It was a useless kind of luck, the ability to put a single coin in a lottery machine, and win every single time he tried it. Namuri dragged her hand over her face. I'm more amazed than mad, bravo, this was a way to win, but I'm still wearing my glasses. Namuri refused to lose that simply. She reached behind herself with one hand, and popped her bra off, before she tossed it onto the clothes pile. She started to pick up the cards, and she shuffled the deck again, and she carefully kept her eyes on the cards slyly. Let's make this interesting. If I win this round with a 20 or 21, you agree to come with me tomorrow and visit my father. He wants to meet you, but he's waiting for you to accept me as your mother, Namuri explained to him. Naruto raised an eyebrow. And when I win? Naruto asked her with a tilted head. If you win, Namuri grinned to herself when she saw that she was done shuffling. She would get her desired outcome. Then I'll make you ramen every single night his week for dinner. Namuri gave him the alternative. She tossed him a card after she gave herself one, and she went from there. Deal. Also hit me, Naruto told her, and she did as he said. She watched as he didn't even flip his cards, and she didn't flip hers either, as she added a card to her pile. Namuri grinned, closing her eyes with a chuckle. She so had this. I'm good, Naruto stated, and she added 2 more cards to her own pile, before she grinned to herself more widely. They flipped their cards, and she stood up and took a victory pose when she knew that she had won. Naruto, Ace, 5, 5-21. Namuri, Ace, 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 2, 7-22. What? Namuri slammed her hands on the table again, and she stared down at the 2 that she wasn't supposed to have. She was supposed to get that ace. She had cheated while she was dealing, and made sure that it would end up in her hand. She had guessed that Naruto would only ask for a hit once, but he was supposed to start out with the 2. I cheated. How did you do this? Namuri put both of her hands on the side of her head. Naruto grinned at her. I know, and I switched the cards when you closed your eyes. I figured you would try to cheat. You've been doing it for a while now, and I know you're not above it. It was easy for me to quickly swap out cards. Naruto explained to her how he had won. Naruto was able to admit to cheating, because he was also able to show that she had cheated. Naruto pulled his phone out, and he showed her a video of her carefully looking at the cards and shuffling in a way that would promise her a victory. Yikes, you are a sneak little devil. Also, my tits look awesome from this angle. You need to send me this video. Namuri wasn't against his video evidence, nor the fact he won all that much. The fact that he took a great video that she could make use of on her more adult dating apps was what mattered to her, though. I'm glad I trimmed to myself to look presentable. I've been debating if I should shave completely or stay trimmed. I might shave. That craze has been catching on again. Namuri looked at the video with a more appraising eye. Naruto hadn't actually looked at the video or anything. He used his foot to hold the phone while it recorded. He just knew he had gotten the footage of her cheating. I didn't want to hear any of that, Naruto told her with a twitching eye. Also, put your panties on now. Nope, I lost fair and square. I lost cheating in circle. Namuri changed the phrase to the opposite, since she didn't lose fair and f square. There had been a fair amount of cheating, if that was what fair amounted to. Put them on. Naruto grabbed her panties and jumped at her, preparing to force her to put them on, since he didn't want to keep looking at what was making him uncomfortable. It was extremely hard to be angry with a hot and naked woman, and he wanted to resent her with all of his being. No. Yes. It was a hard and long battle, but in the end Namuri was wearing all of her clothes again, other than bra, which she only bothered wearing for the sake of the game. Of course, the clothes almost instantly came off again when it was time for them to take a bath, and she was forcing her hand on that issue. Sadly for her, Naruto had decided that he didn't feel like taking a bath with her, and ended up deciding it was time to go to bed for him. Far away. Aya, fresh air. It's been 20 long years of patiently waiting. 910 had such a wonderful amount of information to share with me. To think, the golden age of powerful heroes has turned into this, but quirk breeding has never been higher. Orochimaru spoke as he breathed in the air. Sea air deeply. Being in a locked room, doing nothing, saying nothing, and with 99% of his brain put to sleep at all times, had been a dull experience, and it made for a boring existence. He had lost to All Might, Endeavor, and Gran Torino, though he killed 9 other heroes who fought him, in a grande battle 2 decades previously. To hear two of those heroes had been defeated, maybe not in battle, but by a villain who had managed to run circles around all of the heroes in broad daylight. That had been a humiliating defeat for him years ago, a defeat that had caused him to fall into a state of depression. He could have escaped at any given time he wanted to. He wasn't biding his time for any given reason. He just didn't particularly feel like escaping, because there had been nothing in the world that he felt was worth escaping and risking being defeated and locked up in a prison he couldn't escape from. He wondered something. Did All Might still hate him so passionately? Was All for One still alive as well? Then again I did steal something precious to him. I'd better return it, as a thank you for imprisoning me, and why don't I return it, and with a message. Orochimaru opened his mouth, and 5 large, white snakes slithered out of his open maw. They hovered in the air, before they opened their mouths up wide enough to swallow entire humans. Quirk, the one who possesses all quirks. Quirk, body storage. Quirk, body puppet. Quirk, spirit restoration. 5 pairs of feet came out of the snakes' mouths, and 5 different human bodies started to come out of the mouths slowly. 4 of them people wore similar uniforms, simple tan shirts with black shirts underneath them, with purple robes around their waists, and simple slacks. Only the person in the middle looked any different. 5 human bodies finished coming out of the snakes, and stood standing in front of Orochimaru. They didn't say a word. Tayuya Quirk, demonic illusions. A short, 14-year-old girl with burning red hair and brown eyes. The whites of her eyes had been turned pitch black, and her skin had a slightly cracked appearance to it. Her face was without any emotions to it at first. Jirobo Quirk, stamina conversion. A tall and balding man with a rounded face and body, also 14 years old in appearance, and he bore similar eyes to Tayuya. His cracked skin started to turn healthy looking at the same time as her own started to. Kidamaru Quirk, greater spider. Visibly different with tan skin and 3 arms on each side of his body, he bore a similar appearance to a spider in pure limp number. He also had the same eyes as the rest of those who had been summoned. Sakan and Yukon Quirk, merge. A more plain-looking person, but with a second head identical to the first head, coming out of the back of his neck, giving him a total of 2 of them, both with blank, blackened eyes. Nana Shimura Quirk, one for all? A tall and beautiful woman with shoulder-length black hair, a hero who didn't wear the same uniform as the others he had brought out, a long and flowing white cape with a black bodysuit, and yellow gloves and boots. A really beautiful woman overall, but what was really interesting about her was the fact she had a second quirk inside of her, a quirk that to this day Orochimaru still couldn't use because it was being protected from him by the one-for-all quirk. Tayuya, Jirobo, Kidamaru, Sakan and Yukon travel across Japan and search for the one called Kurama. Of course, if you find an interesting quirk, be sure to bring it to me. I can always use more bodies to add to the collection. Nana Shimura, go greet your student. Orochimaru gave out the order with a gleeful expression. He was extremely pleased that he had managed to take this woman's body from her as she took her final breaths. He had managed to get to her just in time, just before his life stopped ticking. The one who possesses all quirks. It didn't just allow him to possess bodies by merging himself into them, but store those bodies away for later use. He could summon any body that he had ever taken over, of course not without a cost. Whenever he summoned a body, he would lose access to that particular quirk until he absorbed the body once more. Yes, master. Nana Shimura was the only one who didn't respond. Looks like I control you more. Send a message to All Might. Orochimaru more forcefully stated with glowing yellow eyes. Yes, master. Nana responded with her eyes dulled to the point of no emotion whatsoever. Orochimaru placed his hands together as the 5 snakes who spat out the bodies swallowed them up once more and went into the ocean water, traveling towards Japan underneath the waves at incredible speed. They would reach the shore in as little as 8 hours. The heroes no doubt already thought he was in Japan, and he would allow them to think he would let them draw Kurama out for him, and once Kurama's location was revealed, that was when he would start to make his move. After all, I'm nothing if not patient. Orochimaru spoke to himself. He had waited for 20 years. He had given up, but then that wonderful man 910 came, and gave him wonderful news of a villain that had given him hope once more, revived his dream, and allowed him to see once more a world where he attained every type of quirk, and created new quirks whenever he wished it. He didn't desire world domination, though that sounded like something he may attempt in the future if he became unsatisfied with the way the world was being run. No, he simply wished to see how each and every quirk in the world worked and possess it for himself. Only those that caught his eye at least. A grin appeared over Orochimaru's face. With Naruto. A grin appeared over Naruto's face once Namiri had fallen asleep, and he flipped his hood up over his hair, and pulled his mask on his face. Now dressed as Kurama fully once more, Naruto slipped out of his bedroom window and jumped onto the nearest window. He jumped over an entire building and landed on the next one, quickly escaping from the apart complex as the spring night air rushed over him. It was raining. The rain felt so good on his skin, and he felt so energetic during the rain. He was Kurama, he didn't obey laws, he was a villain because he refused to obey them. Like hell he was going to obey a little curfew when the night was so great, a warm spring night, a wet rainfall, and he had ramen in his belly. Naruto laughed as he flipped through the air, landing on his hands and skating using them, before he flipped off the side of the building and stuck to the side of the next one. So much fanservice today. If this was a movie, this would hella be the calm before the storm. Even this rain is light and calm. Naruto commented as he thought about his day, still grinning as he chuckled. As if. Pregnant woman. Leah, leave me alone, I just want to go home. Pregnant woman in an alley getting harassed by thugs. Naruto dropped in the alley behind the woman, crouching on the ground without being seen by anyone. Her larger frame able to hide him as the men drew closer to her. Come on, we just want to have some fun, not like we can get you double pregnant or anything. Naruto stood up, and he stepped out from behind the woman, putting his arm around her shoulders, his grin not visible through his mask. Kurama! You know, I have a poison that causes a man to never be capable of getting a boner ever again. Sound like fun? Naruto asked them as he allowed some poison to drip off of his fingers and onto the wet ground. They were already running away before he finished that statement. Thank you so much, Kurama, can I go? The woman shouted with surprise as Naruto gently lifted her up and jumped up onto the top of the building. What are you? Now, let's get you home safe and sound. I'm in a really good mood because of this great rain. Which way do you live? You live in the nice part of town. Naruto saw the direction she pointed, and he started to jump over buildings that way. Whatever the police were doing to make new curfews had to be dangerous, so this little woman needed to have somebody escort her home anyway. She shouldn't have been alone to start with, and the fact he was experiencing intense pain in his. Intense pain? Oh, Kurama, you're so adorable up close. Instead of a pregnant belly, she had a small hand holding a knife coming from the fake stomach, a second hand ripping open her dress. Okay, the woman was not pregnant, that changed things completely. Thankfully, the knife was only about half an inch into his stomach, nothing too bad for him at least. Naruto dropped the woman into a dumpster as he jumped over her and the small hands that were coming from her stomach. God, the rain really brings out the freaks. Naruto never understood why the freaks loved the rain so much. He loved it because of his quirk, and how he was at his best in the rain thanks to the aspects of having Toad as a quirk. He could never really fight or be at his best during any other time. He didn't get stronger or anything, his brain just worked better, and his stamina was better in the rain. Hope I don't have to deal with more freaks. And speaking of freaks, if that isn't Empty Lady and Kamui Woods out of uniform and together, look at those little love birds, they so can't hide the romance. Naruto jumped onto the side of the building, and saw the rookie heroes together on an outing. They were out of uniform, so this was a personal thing, not a hero thing. He should mess with them. Nah, if they were on a date, he didn't want to cock-block Kamui Woods, not when he would have a chance to get with a giant woman possibly. Thinking about Empty Lady and her quirk actually made him stop to think about what other people did when they accidentally used their quirks during intimate moments. There had to be an entire hospital wing fully dedicated to people who got injured during sex, he just knew it. Boom. Oh shit, I almost died. Naruto fell off the side of the building when a lightning struck right next to him, not even 15 away from him. Empty Lady and Kamui Woods jumped, since they were close by as well, freaking out at the lightning strike and the fact that Kurama dropped out of the sky and landed right in front of them. Sup, you're allowed to ignore the fact that God just tried and failed to kill me, and go about your rain-soaked date looking sexy, empty lady. Hope you're wearing your victory panties. Naruto dodged a kick from empty lady as she furiously got, well, furious at him for making those comments at this moment. We're actually meeting with our partner, and then we'll change into our uniforms. You should go home. It's not safe for people to roam the streets alone anymore. Kamui Woods gave his advice to Naruto, since they were going to be on duty soon enough. Not to mention the top 10 were spooked by something, even if they weren't saying anything about it to any of the other heroes. He didn't feel like being poisoned by Kurama during the rain, so he decided to speak calmly to the younger man. I hope you get bit by whatever it is that is so dangerous. You nearly gave me a heart attack. Empty lady held a hand to her chest. He had scared the shit out of her, appearing out of nowhere like that. She hadn't been expecting to go face to face with Kurama tonight. The villain just raised his hands up in a mocking fashion, jumping up onto the side of the building, and looking down at them. I'm Kurama, a villain. I'm not exactly somebody villains go after. It's you heroes that need to worry. Tell you what though, if a snake bites your ass, I'll suck the poison out for you. Anything to kiss those sweet cheeks. Naruto blew a kiss at her as he spoke. He needed to tease her. At this point he needed to stay in character. Kiss my ass! Empty lady shouted at him. Kamui Woods palmed his face. That is exactly what he said he was going to do. You're encouraging him to kiss your behind. Kamui Woods pointed out to her that she was just not helping her case here. His cheeks were hidden underneath his helmet, but they were burning red. Yeah man, she's got enough ass to go around. I get one cheek, you can kiss the other. Let's turn this into a weird threesome. I don't do sloppy seconds though, so I get to go first. Naruto laughed as he got both of them stunned. Only empty lady was visibly blushing since Kamui Woods wore his helmet even on his off hours. She looked stunned by what he had said, though they both recovered. Empty lady threw her drink at Naruto, and he caught it easily enough. I'm going to catch up, and make you regret teasing me, you little shit. Empty lady was the far more emotional of the two. Naruto could see they weren't going to chase him, so he tossed her drink back to her, and hopped off on his way. That boy isn't right. Didn't his parents teach him about what he shouldn't say to a lady? Says the lady who is always talking about her ass on camera, to play up the fact she is an attractive woman. Kamui Woods thought resentfully, since she was able to use her gender and sex appeal to her advantage to get great publicity. He had to actually do a great job at being a hero if he wanted to get the same popularity results as her. Still, she's not all bad. Kamui Woods thought as he looked at her. Expression changed a little. He's a good kid though, really just needs somebody to put him in the right direction. He reminds me of what I might be like as a villain, little attention whore. Empty lady spoke with a small laugh to herself, before she blushed when she realized that she had said that out loud. She crossed her arms, and scoffed to make a show of it. I don't feel right, something big is happening, and we aren't being told about it. What can have the best pro-heroes in the nation so scared? Kamui Woods asked empty lady with a concerned tone, switching to what they had been speaking to each other about earlier. Doesn't matter what it is, as heroes, we have to do our job. Empty lady put her hands in her pockets, again out of uniform so she had them, and she started to walk once more. They needed to meet their partner, and start patrolling now. So we're looking for white snakes, and if we see them we call one of the big guys to come in and grab them? Empty lady read over their new job assignments until whatever was going on was taken care of. They weren't supposed to be doing office work during the day anymore. They would be expected to take care of their paperwork during their off hours. Now they were supposed to go patrolling all day in their groups of 2 or 3 during nighttime when it was more dangerous. She, Kamui Woods, and Death Arms were all a team apparently, having been assigned together for their strength and ability to capture opponents with size, power, or wood. A white snake, we could easily take out a simple snake, must be really poisonous or something. Death Arms grinned and rubbed his jaw in thought. He had a cigarette hanging from his lips, since patrolling for 3 hours was boring in general, and he was a smoker. He couldn't take a smoke break, so he had to do it on the job. All this secretive stuff isn't going to get anyone anywhere. Empty lady stepped further away from Death Arms. Can you stop breathing at me? I don't want my hair to smell. Empty lady didn't want his bad habit to have any effect on her public image. All it took was one person going around saying that she smelled like cigarette, and her image would be lowered a little among the younger age groups. Death Arms might not care that he smelled, but she took proper care to make sure that her hair always smelled fresh. Kamui Woods was just silent as he kept his eyes lowered to the ground. White snakes. I wonder if there is a new breed of snake that was discovered with quirks. Wait, Kamui put a hand in front of Death Arms, and both his fellow pros stopped in their tracks. They would have stopped anyway, because they received similar signals to him. Empty Lady took out her phone, and saw that she had received a message at the same time as himself and Death Arms. Looks like there is a villain attacking at the park, and it's really close. Just straight down this street, and on the right. Empty Lady grinned at the chance for a little more fame. She would be forced to share it this time, but her last loss against Kurama still hadn't been completely washed away just yet. She used her quirk and gained her giant size, before she picked up both Death Arms and Kamui in each of her hands. Cars in the street started to pull over to the side of the room, as was normal for them to do, when a hero was on the move to go and do their heroing. Empty Lady was careful not to stomp her feet on the ground as she sprinted down the road, more than wide enough of a road for her to run on too. Whoa! You need to warn us! Kamui shouted up at her as she raced down to the road, faster than a truck with ease thanks to her extremely long legs. This was like his second or third time getting so rudely picked up, like a toy, and ran with. His stomach could never quite get used to the feelings of being flung around in her hands. Empty Lady jumped over a tall building when they got closer to the park, and she landed at the edge of the park itself, her feet making large indents in the ground. Thankfully, it was just grass and it was easy to fix. Kurama, where are you? Empty Lady set down Death Arms and Kamui, just in time for the three of them to hear the sound of a person screaming out that villain's name. They all shared a glance, before they sighed amongst themselves. Great, and here I thought this was going to be a victory. Wanna just not bother? If Kurama is being chased by a hero, we aren't going to catch him. Death Arms suggested, thought they came here for nothing. Facing against Kurama was still pretty much a promise of wasting their time for nothing anyway. Death Arms had learned the hard way he was never going to catch Kurama, and he had given up even trying to attempt it anymore. Really not worth the effort. Death Arms put his thumbs in his pockets, and started to turn around to walk away. There were craters in the park. This doesn't seem like Kurama's work, and I don't see any heroes around, I just see a boulder flying at us. Empty Lady pointed out as a large boulder, about a tenth of the size of her giant form, was sent flying at them from the sky. Empty Lady returned back to her giant form, and jumped out of the way of the boulder, with Death Arms and Kamui jumped out of the way of the boulder as it crash-landed where they were standing. Hey! Watch it, that isn't a hero I recognize, and you're right, Kurama isn't anywhere. Empty Lady stayed in her giant form as she spoke, pointing at a balding, orange-haired teenager. He was throwing some kind of tantrum. Kurama, somebody tell me where Kurama is. If nobody does, I'll destroy everything until I find him. Jirobo shouted loudly, given some emotional freedom to act as he would have acted before his body became possessed by Orochimaru's will. Hey kid, calm down, Kurama isn't here, he just shows up and leaves however he wants. Death Arms didn't want this to escalate. Jirobo visibly calmed down. Trash heroes always show up, but even trash has its purpose. Jirobo stated with a smirk on his face as he looked at the three heroes. Villain, he's a villain, and I'm going to crush him for that one. Anyway, he is using his quirk to disturb the public. Empty Lady pointed at Jirobo and shouted, to make it very clear that she was going to beat up this teenager in the name of justice. That way nobody could accuse her of simply doing this because she wanted to, and after being called trash, she clearly wanted to hurt him a little. Kurama insulting them was enough, she didn't need another snot-nosed brat doing it. Seriously, a little immature of you, fine, you can take him on. Death Arms lit another cigarette since he lost the first one when Empty Lady had carried them. She could handle a simple teenager by herself, she was a rookie, but this was something even a rookie could easily handle on their own. It was obvious the kid had a super strength quirk, but Empty Lady in her giant form would no doubt be stronger than him. It was a strength versus strength match, and it was harder to win against a giant. Women need to be more quiet, Jirobo stated. Kamui raised his hands up, deciding he wasn't going to get caught up in any of this. If there was one way to piss off 90% of the heroine population, It was to do or say something based on the fact that they were women. Empty Lady swung her fist down at him. It only hurts for a second when I knock people out, though. He took a step to the side and caught her fist by the wrist, wrapping his arms around her outstretched body part. Her fist didn't touch the ground, his feet sank into the grass deeper, but her fist didn't make contact with anything as he stopped it dead in its tracks. If anything, he flexed his arms and her feet were lifted off of the ground as she was taken to the air, and lifted up higher and higher, swung around like a bat. Then, in a second, her back came into harsh contact with dozens of trees as she was used as a hammer to flatten a portion of the park. Women should be more polite when speaking, Jirobo stated as he lifted her up by her wrist again, and swung her around some more. She landed on her knees and started to pull back her hand, but he was able to use his strength to stay firm and keep her from pulling back. He's extremely strong, stronger than you or Empty Lady. That is some freakish strength. Kamui examined the level of strength needed to throw around Empty Lady, as no small amount of super strength. Not to mention, he had thrown a giant boulder at them to start things off with. We should assist her, this isn't a weak villain. Kamui started to run into battle. Death Arms put his cigarette out on his wrist protectors, and tossed it to the side, before he started to charge into battle as well, but more slowly than Kamui did with his more speedy form. He's stronger than me and I'm getting weaker. Empty Lady started to shrink down in size, her wrist getting small enough to escape his firm grasp, as she put some distance between them just by getting smaller. Not via her own will though, Empty Lady was out of breath as she shrank down. I'm already tired, it's harder to maintain my quirk like that, Empty Lady thought as she looked at herself. How could she be tired already? Lacquered chains prison? Kamui shouted as his wooden gauntlets grew large amounts of wood from them, and raced towards Jirobo, surrounding him from all sides. Jirobo shoved his fist into the ground, and pulled out a large amount of earth, throwing it through the holes in the wood, right towards Kamui. Death Arms arrived last, and jumped in front of Kamui, putting his hands out and catching the smaller chunk of earth, getting pushed back by the force of it. I gotcha, rookie! Death Arms grinned as he tossed the earth to the side, letting Otis slam into the ground with a loud boom. The wooden prison wrapped around Jirobo tightly. You won't be able to break out of those easily. My wood can restrain even those with strength such as yours. Your super strength quirk will be no use here, villain. Death Arms, please call the police so this young man can be. Kamui dropped to one knee before he could finish his speech though. He gasped when a wave of exhaustion fell over him, and his wooden prison around Jirobo started to crack as the teenager started to flex with visible strain. The more tired he became, the more powerful Jirobo seemed to become, until finally Jirobo snapped the prison holding him and smirked. Trash heroes, always assuming they know what a person's quirk is just by looking at it. Jirobo stood up straight and started to run towards Death Arms. Death Arms looked at Empty Lady panting, and Kamui on a knee, before he started to run at Jirobo as well. Neither of them moved particularly fast, but Death Arms' longer legs just gave him a slightly larger stride. He swung his fist first, and slammed it into Jirobo's face, and he stepped back when Jirobo swung at him, the punch missing him completely. He's got little martial arts skill, but after seeing his strength, I can't afford to get hit by even a single punch, and I've got to figure out how he exhausted the rookies. Death Arms gave a quick jab to Jirobo's face, and saw the boy step back in pain, before swinging at Death Arms again. The punch was sloppy, easy to figure out where it was going to go, so Death Arms grabbed onto his hand as it passed by him, flipping Jirobo over his shoulder and slamming the teenager onto his back. Simple judo, but highly effective against an opponent that relied on strength instead of skill like this one did. You didn't stay a hero as long as he had, without being able to deal with opponents who possessed more physical strength than yourself. Kamui stood up and created more wood from his arms, with it traveling towards Jirobo to try and restrain him while he was down. Empty Lady, after a moment's breath, returned to her giant form and grabbed Kamui's attack before it reached Jirobo, and stopped it. He can drain you. He got stronger after I got weaker, Empty Lady said while panting, before she returned back to normal, unable to hold her transformation much longer than that. She had seen him getting stronger as Kamui got weaker too, and she only saw Kamui suffer from exhaustion after he made physical contact with his wood. Jirobo started to stand up. Even trash heroes can figure something out every once in a while. Tell me then, where is Kurama? My master wishes for Kurama. Tell me where he is, and only two of you will die. Jirobo offered what he believed to be a fair compromise. If they gave in to his wishes, then there would be one less death. Death Arms punched Jirobo in the back of the head without a moment of hesitation needed, and Jirobo stood his ground and took the hit. He, in surprising agility, reached behind himself and grabbed onto Death Arms. He gripped tightly as Death Arms continued to punch him time after time, blood not splurting from a wound on the back of his head. Jirobo, bring the wood one to me, and the strength quirk, having more of those will always be handy. You may only kill the woman. A white snake. Death Arms could feel his stamina draining as well, and his opponent's grip get even tighter on him. A snake came out of the ground next to Jirobo, and spoke to the boy, something that Empty Lady and Kamui both noticed as well. G.U.H. Death Arms was bitten in the ankle by the snake moments later. Poison coursed through his veins, and he collapsed. Kamui got out his phone, and prepared to call for help, as he was supposed to do when they saw a white snake, and a speaking one at that. Kill me as if you could do that. Empty Lady didn't express her worry outwards, since he wanted Death Arms alive. Whatever poison caused Death Arms to drop onto his back wouldn't kill him. She maintained a false confidence though, since the entire time he had grabbed her by the wrist, he had been draining her stamina as well. Jirobo, the second the snake spoke, had his face go completely blank, as if his personality and emotions had been erased completely. Yes, master. Death Arms. Kamui shouted when the snake opened its mouth wide, and swallowed Death Arms whole, before slithering into a hole in the ground. Empty Lady, get out of here, you're out of stamina, I'll hold him off until help arrives. He wants me alive, and you can't use your quirk anymore. Kamui shouted out to her. He could see that she had almost no strength left, since she was a low stamina type of person anyway, her quirk always letting her finish stuff quickly enough to never need much stamina. Empty Lady ignored him though, and stood firm where she was. My quirk uses less stamina than you would think anyway, I'm not leaving you. If you can buy time for help to arrive, together we can double that time. Empty Lady raised her fists up, she needed to conserve her stamina, so she would wait to use her quirk until right before she would actually attack. Jirobo showed no reaction to either of their words. It was like he no longer had any personality. He just started to run towards Kamui, and Kamui used his quirk to make wood and latch onto a nearly tree, pulling himself out of Jirobo's reach when he made a grab for him. He landed on a tree branch, and Jirobo ripped another giant boulder out of the ground. He made a sharp turn though, and threw it in Empty Lady's direction. I'll just run under it. Empty Lady saw the boulder went soaring above where she was standing, and it would crash into a tall building outside of the park. If the boulder crashed into the building, then hundreds or thousands would be killed by the attack. Heroes couldn't allow innocents to face harm. It was one of their rules, a victory condition for a hero, so to say. Empty Lady didn't hesitate, and used her quirk to grow massive. She became a human shield as the boulder slammed her torso, and she tried her hardest to catch it. Still, catching a boulder that was half of her size was no easy feat even for her. She was knocked off of her feet, and she slammed into the ground with the wind knocked out of her. She rolled the boulder off of her body and safely in the park, unable to catch her breath well, and with blood pouring out of her mouth, she started to shrink down in size. Jirobo was waiting for her, and he grabbed her by her neck and lifted her up into the air. What little stamina she had was gone as he squeezed her neck hard enough to give her trouble breathing. Surrender willingly, and she will live, continue fighting, and I break not only her neck, but I start to kill civilians. Jirobo stated emotionlessly, squeezing harder on her neck until the point she couldn't even breathe in anymore. Kamui lowered himself to his knees willingly. He will take me to his master, and he isn't making a light threat. That boulder he threw was the largest yet, and he threw it with the intention of killing hundreds. Kamui submitted without a word. The same snake from earlier that bit Death Arms came out of its hole in the ground, and bit him on the shoulder. Let her go. Kamui groaned as he resisted the poison the best that he could. Villains with no morals were the hardest for heroes to face, truly no morals that was. Jirobo, allow her to live, so that she can tell the heroes this Orochimaru has gained 2 more quirks. The snake spoke as Kamui Woods passed out on the ground. The snake swallowed Kamui whole as he lay unable to fight it. Empty Lady was tossed aside once the lack of air finally got to HR, and she passed out. Passed out, but still alive. Location: Tokyo. And I was like, Kurama, if I weren't a good girl, I would have totally beaten your ass hardcore with a good bubble of absolute stink. Bubble Girl stated as she did a karate chop. She made a joke as she walked inside of the mall with some of her fellow heroes. She was a sidekick instead of a true pro hero, but all the same, she was still expected to do her own patrols since she was a named hero, and not a sidekick that wore a minion uniform. That is a very good story, and you were really close to capturing him? Since Sir Night Eye was feeling ill, he had asked Ingenium to do the patrol with Bubble Girl, and they were joined on their patrol by the normal hero, Manuel. Really? I didn't know you were that skilled. I thought you were just Sir Night Eye's sidekick. Ingenium didn't know he was patrolling with somebody who had nearly captured Kurama himself. Bubble Girl puffed her chest up with pride. Honestly, that was just my attempt at a joke. Sir Night Eye wants me to make more jokes, or else he punishes me by strapping me to a tickle table. He really is obsessed with humor. Bubble Girl became more serious, as was her actual personality. She had been trying to imitate the type of hero that her boss really appreciated. To be honest, I tried to get him with a really bad-smelling bubble, but he forced it in my face instead, and I knocked myself out. Bubble Girl could remember her first defeat against Kurama very well. She had created the worst-smelling bubble of her life, created after the worst smell she had ever smelled, and she ended up knocking herself out with it. Patrolling the mall though, it's a shame we're on duty. I just never have the time to come here anymore. I heard they added a new cafe on the 5th floor. Ingenium looked up towards the 5th floor railings, since you could see every floor from the any floor. The mall was a place that was often attacked, so being asked to do a patrol at a mall wasn't that uncommon in their line of work. What was the smell in the bubble? Manuel asked out of curiosity. Her quirk worked as a you smell it you can deal it situation, so unless she smelled something truly horrifying, she couldn't produce such a smell. I would rather not say, Bubble Girl admitted with a deep blush spreading across her blue cheeks. Hey, heroes! Can I ask you a few questions? They turned around and saw a young boy with 6 arms and odd clothing behind them, Kidamaru, but more odd were the way his eyes had no white to them, just pure black. It had to be something related to his quirk though, so none of them thought anything was off about the 6-armed boy. Sure thing. Happy to help. Ingenium stepped forward with a smile on his face. Under his helmet there was a smile on his face. Where can I find the villain named Kurama? Do any of you have any hints to where he is? I'm sorry, but we can't let civilians chase criminals, even if they do want to capture a villain. Not to mention, we don't know where he is. Kurama just comes, makes a mess of things, and then leaves. Ingenium stated with a nod of his head. This teenager must be wanting to try and capture Kurama to gain a level of fame. It was nice to see a young person with high aspirations like this. Kurama's a jerk, but he's a good person. Nobody really needs to go after him anyway. Bubble Girl pointed out with crossed arms. Kidamaru took that information in. Manuel was the first to notice something off about the way that a grin seemed to spread over Kidamaru's face, and how it was filled with malice. So if I use the blood from your corpses to send him a message, I can make him appear on his own if he's such a good person. That was the only warning they were given before Ingenium experienced pain going through his chest in 6 places. Piercing through his armor were 6 small daggers, and the engines in his arms went off as he rushed away from Kidamaru. The daggers had pierced through his armor just enough to give him very minor stab wounds, but he spun around and cut his engines as he started to yank them out one by one. Manuel got into a basic combat stance. The only source of water was the fountain on the 1st floor, but they were on the 2nd floor, and he was too far away from it to use his quirk. He could control water, but he could not produce it himself, so in this type of fight situation, he was not great. Thankfully, he had a small amount of regular combat training to get him by. He's a villain! Bubble Girl didn't take a defensive stance, she jumped into combat and made bubbles come out of her skin. His quirk seemed to resolve around 6 arms, so it was more than likely a mutation-type quirk that gave him a physical body changed at its core. All civilians, evacuate the area. We've got a dangerous villain in the area. Please leave in an orderly fashion. Bubble Girl shouted out at the top of her lungs. She grabbed onto Kidamaru's shoulder and popped one of her bubbles in his face, unleashing the odor within it. Two of his arms on that side of his body latched onto her outstretched arm, at the elbow and wrist, and she produced more bubbles and started to pop them in his face even more to try and get him to release her by the smell. You smell like trash, but since heroes are trash anyway, this is a fitting smell for your kind. Kidamura had the arms he used to grab Bubble Girl grabbed by Manuel, as he started to pry them off of her arm. He turned his body a little, and the three arms on the other side of his body grabbed onto Ingenium when the man tried to launch a surprise attack. His three arms grabbed onto Ingenium and held him up off the ground. His final arm grabbed Manuel by the neck and lifted him up into the air, meaning he now had a firm hold on all three of the heroes he was facing off against. His arms are stronger than I thought with how skinny they are. Ingenium started to go through the gears and the engines in his arms, and though he moved nowhere, when he reached his top gear, he jerked out of Kidamura's arms. He grabbed onto Bubble Girl and Manuel, jumping off the railing of the second floor and landing on the first floor. Kidamura jumped on top of the railing. "Are you okay, Bubble Girl?" Manuel asked when Ingenium let go of the two of them, and they all turned to face the villain as he looked down at them, a cocky smirk in place. Kidamura opened his mouth and started to all string out of it, before a third eye opened up on his forehead, and he looked down at them with it. Using multiple hands to form the string and tighten it, he started to spew a hardened, golden thread out of his mouth. He attached it to the threads, and he pulled back on it. Bubble Girl's arm was visibly pulled out of its socket, and she was biting her lip. "Sorry, I should have been more." Ingenium stopped when she rose her good arm up. "I'm cool, I'm good, it is just out of its socket." Bubble Girl grabbed onto her arm, and she jerked it back into socket, biting her lip hard enough to draw blood to keep from screaming out. A tear escaped her eye, and she used her now fixed arm and sent Ingenium a thumbs up. "I just want to wipe that smirk off of his face," Bubble Girl stated to her two partners as they all looked up at Kidamura. "Looks like there are still some people in this mall. It would be a shame if I decided to fire at them like this." Kidamura took aim at a civilian who had stayed to watch the hero/villain fight, since more than a few of them had stayed to watch. He didn't even give a second more of warning before he fired off at the civilian, and his golden thread arrow hit its target straight and true. He pinned the civilian to the wall by his arm. "Aya! You bastard, don't involve civilians in this!" Ingenium shouted out as he looked up to the floor where the person had been hurt badly. "Manuel, we need you to evacuate the civilians for real and use the fountain to protect them from more arrows," Ingenium stated as he started up his quirk again and started to run towards Kidamura, and prepared to jump up to the second floor once more. Bubble Girl latched onto his back, while Manuel nodded and started to make his escape from the battle so that he could protect the people. Kidamura jumped off the second floor and created 7 more arrows, loading them all up into his makeshift bow. He started to fire across the mall, his accuracy perfect as he nailed 7 different people all over the mall to the walls behind them by their arms. Their screams went off like music to his ears as he landed on the railing on the other side of the second floor, making Ingenium and Bubble Girl had to turn around to get at him. "Hurry up, heroes, the longer you take to stop me, the more people that start screaming. Soon enough, this place will become a ballad of agony." Kidamura loaded up more arrows and fired them as the 2 heroes got closer to him again. When Ingenium jumped up to the second floor with Bubble Girl, Kidamura jumped up to the 4th floor and took aim at the people down below, who had now started to run for the exits. They finally realized that they were in real danger, that this was a villain who didn't care about the heroes as much, and purely wanted to attack civilians. Manuel used the water from the fountain to protect the civilians around him as they escaped, using it to shield them from more arrows that lost their speed as they traveled through the water, slowing down enough to miss their targets, and get stuck in the ground safely. "You won't be hurting anyone else over here. Everyone, escape through this door. If you are on higher floors, jump and the water will catch you," Manuel called out to all of those who weren't impaled to walls. "If you can, pull those who can't move out of the wall, and go get them hospital treatment," Manuel added in when he remembered there were already injured people. He prepared the water to catch those who were already jumping off their various floors. Kidamura jumped down to the 3rd floor when Ingenium jumped up towards him at a higher gear, but Bubble Girl jumped off of his back and started to fall towards where Kidamura was going to land. The second he landed there, both of her knees sank into the middle of his chest. Both of them went falling to the ground, tumbling, but she grabbed 2 of his arms and pushed them to the ground, sat on his 2 of his arms, and she shoved her feet into 2 other arms. She used her entire body to stop his arms, meaning he couldn't fight back or use that bow of his anymore. Ingenium saw Kadamura grin. He tapped the side of his helmet. I need emergency assistance at the mall. Use my beacon to send reinforcements. Send at least 11 to 13 sidekicks. Ingenium contacted his own hero office and sent for help. That smirk wasn't the smirk of somebody that had been taken down, it was the smirk of somebody who had gotten exactly what they wanted. Ingenium, half of all of the mall patrons have been evacuated. Once everyone is out, I'm coming back into the fight. Manuel called out to the engine-quirked hero. Those nailed to the walls had been helped off the walls, and had been already evacuated to safety. I've got the villain, call in the police, so we can send this bastard to. Bubble Girl didn't finish when golden arrows shot directly out of Kadamura's mouth, and stabbed into the side of her ribs. Blood escaped from her mouth, her eyes widening, when the arrows sank inches deep into her ribcage. The inside of her mask now making her face invisible as blood filled it up. She collapsed off of him, with him pushing her off of him, and yanking his arrows out of her body. A trash hero will always be trash, even if they get lucky. Kadamura grabbed her and tossed her off the edge of the railing. He wanted to watch her fall to her death. Bubble Girl! Ingenium shouted out as he jumped down after her, increasing his fall speed by firing off his engines. At the angle she was falling at, her head would be crushed open when it impacted the ground. If he didn't save her, cushion her fall, she would die on impact. His arms reached out for her, and he grabbed onto her. Good, she was still breathing, she was still alive with her injuries, she was just knocked out from the shock of the injury itself. As Ingenium was still in the air. Then, 2 arrows dodged themselves in his back, shattering his armor. Still, Ingenium wrapped his arms around Bubble Girl and used his body to soften the fall for her. Water rushed over the ground towards them, and softened the fall even more. Ingenium was groaning in pain, it was close to a scream though, while Kadamura looked towards Manuel. I might not be as good as those two, but I won't let you do as you please. Manuel had the water pull Bubble Girl and Ingenium back towards him so that they could be more easily protected by the water. He evacuated the last of the civilians in the mall, before he grabbed his own communicator. This is Manuel, we need emergency assistance from all heroes in the area, I repeat, heroes. Ingenium and Bubble Girl are down with critical injuries, we need Recovery Girl here ASAP. Manuel reported their status. Kadamura frowned when he saw a second hero asking for assistance. So, there would be a lot of reinforcements coming for them. Trash, a real hero doesn't need help well, trash will act like trash. Kadamura pulled more arrows from his mouth, and loaded them up. This wouldn't take long for him to finish with. Leave them alive, but send a message to the rest of the heroes. A white snake spoke to him from under his clothes, and Kadamura's face went blank as he stayed prepped for the fight. The fight would be over before help arrived. Location U.A. Okay brats, just run laps together or whatever. Mirko didn't care what the class did for the day. She had bigger things she had to worry about than her new teaching job, and she was just subbing in for the gym teacher anyway. It wasn't like they, as Hero Course students, weren't going to get physical training in All Might's class anyway. I should be out there, looking for Orochimaru and Kurama, but I'm stuck here. Mirko thought with a deep frown on her face. The only reason she was here at all was because Kurama was likely to show up at UA since he had taken a liking to messing with the students. That was it, if not for that fact, she would have ditched this job and gone out there. The school's alarms went off. Kurama must have decided to come back, and trip the alarms for fun. Kirishima rubbed the back of his head as he started to run laps next to a few of his classmates. I would never trip the alarms, that just isn't the way I do things, Naruto said as he ran alongside Kirishima, in full Kurama costume. Nobody even noticed as he blended in with them, somehow managing to not alarm any of them with the fact that he had slipped in unnoticed. Anyway, that isn't even the school alarm, that is somebody's phone, Naruto mentioned, surprising Kirishima even more. Really good sound on it then. Mirko blinked a few times as she turned her head, and watched as the class didn't even seem to realize that Kurama was among them. Her jaw dropped when she saw that Kurama was in the class with the brats, but none of them had it register with them just yet. Sorry, that is my phone, I'm getting a call from my mother. I forgot to put it in my locker. Ida raised his hand up and pulled his phone out before he put the call to voicemail. He would have to call her back, but seeing as he was in class, that wasn't something he could do. Thank you, Kurama, I would have. Everyone stopped running. They all stopped running and looked at Naruto with their eyebrows shooting up in surprise, realizing that he had managed to get into their class again. Naruto continued to run though, with a mocking look on his face, and he showed that he had a brown sack in his right hand. I stole all of your underwear, and it's in this bag, Naruto told them with a grin visible through his mask. Get him. You idiots, do you want to get humiliated again? Mirko jumped between the class and Naruto, and she jumped away from Naruto before he could poison her. She raised her fists up, before she unclenched them with a frown. The very act of not attacking her favorite villain was like a dangerous poison for her fists. Also, Kurama, I need to have an important talk with you. This isn't a trap, I swear if this is a trap, I will retire from being a hero. Mirko had figured he would attack the class again soon. She didn't realize he was this bored though, that he would attack the very next chance that he had the opportunity. I mean, you just had to ask. I've got some time before I got to be back where I'm supposed to be, Naruto mentioned with a shrug. He raised a finger though, his middle finger, and pointed it to Class A. I was going to give back your underwear after I had my fun, but since Bun Bun needs me to scratch an itch. Mirko slapped the back of his head. Just give the brats their underwear back. Fine, but whoever it is that wears the Kurama boxers and Kurama panties, you got fine taste, and all 4 of you. Naruto ripped open the bag and allowed all of the underwear to fall over the ground. Naruto saw a lot of blushes when everyone had their undies revealed to their classmates again, but he just turned to Mirko. Let's head out, Bun Bun, whatever you need to talk about must be pretty important, Naruto mentioned to her as she began to lead the way for him to follow. Kurama! Naruto turned and saw Bakugo. Sup, Bumi? Naruto asked him as he put his hands in his pockets. I'm going to be the best hero, so you better not get caught by anyone other than me, Bakugo shouted with small explosions going off in his hands. Mirko couldn't let that one slide. Listen, you little brat, Kurama is going to be caught by me. Not some future rookie, his sweet ass belongs to me. Mirko gained a firm grasp on Naruto's ass as she said that, squeezing but, before she pounded a fist to her chest. Naruto sent her a look, to show that he really didn't care for that last little thing. Also, the important thing? Naruto reminded her, since she had ruined his prank with seriousness. If she was going to ruin her own serious moment, then why should he follow through with talking with her in private? Mina had her panties in her hands. He signed them for me, I can't wear these anymore now. Mina thought as she looked at the ass of her panties had Kurama's signature on it. She looked at Jairu, who was holding her own panties, which had the signature on the front of it. She nodded to the girl, and she got a nod in return. I'm never washing these again. I need to frame them and hang them on a wall. Jairu hated the fact that what was signed was panties, but she had Kurama's signature. Mineta shivered when he looked at his small, signed boxers. Kurama was his personal hero, because Kurama had seen every girl in the school naked, and had taken clothes from many female heroes. Not to mention he had the hotness that was Mirko after him. He wished he could be in Kurama's shoes every day, but he just didn't have those levels of skill. Oh cool! Mine were signed too! Denki shouted, and Jiraiya looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Well, Denki seemed like a trendy guy, so it made sense for him to wear those. Actually, him wearing those was pretty much promised. In the teacher's lounge. You caught him! Sup, All Might, and no, she didn't catch me, she asked me to come here, Naruto mentioned as he waved to All Might, who was sitting and waiting for them apparently. Also, are you sure you want to drink that? Naruto asked All Might as he glanced at All Might's cup of tea. All Might pushed the teacup away from him with a grimace, having not thought it could be poisoned, and instantly regretted not checking it earlier. He didn't poison it, Mirko pointed out with a roll of her eyes as she grabbed the teacup and took a drink from it, just to prove a point. Mirko collapsed on the floor. You actually poisoned it, All Might commented as Naruto grabbed Mirko by the waist and pushed her so that she was sitting down, unable to move, in one of the chairs. Naruto sat down next to Mirko. She was staring at him. You actually poisoned it, Mirko stated, even though most of her body was not unable to move. I poisoned every single cup and mug in the teacher's lounge, to be fair. Anyway, what is this important thing about? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. He wanted to know why Mirko hadn't tried to punch his face. Naruto grabbed the teacup and started to drink from it, since for the most part, he was highly resistant to his own poison. It took a large amount of it to affect him, and there were no fatal levels of it either. All Might leaned forward, and he powered down to his true form. Since Kurama was already aware of it, there was no need for him to keep up appearances. Everyone is in danger, All Might stated simply. What does this have to do with me? Naruto asked with a roll of his hands. Most of the time, unless he believed an innocent person was going to be really hurt to the point a new orphan was going to be made, or a child would be killed, he didn't want to get involved. If a hero was going to lose their life fighting a villain, that was their job. They signed up to risk their lives, and he wasn't likely to interfere. I'm not teaming up with you guys if that is what you want. I'm not a hero, I'm a villain. It's my job to fight heroes, it's your job to fight villains. Naruto spelled his thoughts out for All Might. Mirko scoffed. The people on that bus would disagree with you, Mirko mumbled, since she remembered how the news reported him as saving a bus full of people. There were children on that bus. If I can stop a kid from turning into an orphan, or stop a kid from dying, that is something different. Naruto argued against her with crossed arms, tightly crossed in fact. It was not his duty to protect people, that was the duty of the heroes out there. All Might paused before he spoke. We aren't here to ask you to join us, we want to protect you, for the sake of everyone. There is a very dangerous man after you. All Might summarized, not wanting to go into too deep of detail about it. He didn't want to explain anything, none of the regular heroes knew about it either. Naruto was interested. Sounds fun. Naruto grinned under his mask. It won't be, he wants you alive, which is worse than if he wanted you dead. This man broke out of a highly secure prison to find you and possess you. All Might explained further, and Naruto leaned forward, putting his hands on the table between them in interest. He was more open to hearing about this information now. His quirk will allow him to go into your body, and take it over. Your mind will be practically gone, and just because part of him. All Might needed to press how important and dangerous this man was. He was speaking with a teenager who was extremely experienced with heroes, so he was used to facing people with a sense of right and wrong. Sounds pretty bad, too bad for him. I'm Kurama. You're Kurama, and he is Yamada no Orochi, the most dangerous villain I've ever fought. It took me, Endeavor, Gran Torino, and 9 other heroes to take him down, and only 3 of us survived. Orochimaru is a powerful, dangerous man. If he takes you over, nobody will be able to stop him. He will have access to your memories, skills, and quirk. I'm not asking you to fight with us, I'm asking you to let us protect you. All Might spoke with his brow furrowing. Then why don't you just kill me then, if there is such a threat? I'm pretty sure Endeavor has already made a suggestion like it. Naruto lay back and relaxed, a sly grin on his face, unworried about the talk they were having. Naruto did raise an eyebrow at how weird that quirk sounded though. Anyway, if he is stronger than you, and I was able to take you out, what makes you think I can't avoid him? Naruto offered them that possibility. He was a slippery bastard. If people went after him, they didn't usually get far with him. All Might was startled by the death suggestion. Don't even joke about that. Mirko snapped at Naruto, since she didn't want to imagine a world where he was killed when they could avoid it. I can. All Might stood up to try and say he was going to force Kurama to go into hiding, before he collapsed down on one knee as poison coursed through his veins as well. He looked at Naruto in shock, and Naruto just raised his hands up in slight victory. I also poisoned the teacup handles, though the poison takes longer to take effect. What speeds it up is when you get your pulse going. You see, I can take any of you out at any time. What makes this guy so special? If he wants me, and he is so dangerous, I will fight him myself. Naruto explained with his arms outstretched. He didn't see why he needed to worry about any of this. It was a guy with multiple quirks who stole bodies. Not only that, but he had just broken out of prison. How did you know I wouldn't drink it? I didn't, so I made a backup plan, since I didn't want to fight you. This is what is going to happen. Orochimaru will show up and he will lose. If you want to help me, then that is on you, but I will not hide. Naruto explained as he stood up, a glare in his eyes. He didn't want anyone to think that he couldn't protect himself. If we fought fairly, then you wouldn't win though in a straight fight. Yeah, in a straight fight against either of you, I would lose. I'm a villain though. I don't have to fight fairly, I can use the most underhanded tactics. Naruto said as his hand reached out and patted Mirko on the head. He could admit, he wasn't the best fighter around, he relied on his other abilities too much. In a fight where he couldn't make use of his spatial awareness, he was pretty crippled. But he had yet to find any heroes that were like Himiko, who could get around his ability. All Might closed his eyes, and through sheer force of will, he lowered his head and bowed to Naruto, forehead touching the ground. Mirko's eyes widened when she saw All Might bowing. Kurama, I beg you, please let us save you. Please let us save the world by protecting you. You are a good person at heart, you are a villain I have come to respect as a great person on the inside. You can't beat Orochimaru, you just can't. If you fight him, the world will become a worse place for everyone. All Might begged with tears in his eyes. Naruto was a little shocked. You're crying? Years ago, my master fought against a dangerous criminal and I thought she died against him. I was wrong. As she was dying, Orochimaru stole her body for himself, and when I fought against Orochimaru I was worthless for most of that fight. My master was a woman I saw as my own mother, and he used her as a weapon against me. This man is a monster, he doesn't have a twisted moral compass, he has no moral compass. All Might had tears dripping off of his nose as he bowed to Naruto, crying tears of regret and sadness. Flashback. Come on, All Might, look at me, look at my face, can you continue to fight me like this? Orochimaru asked, half of his face ripped off to show Nana Shimura's face underneath his own face, a large and twisted grin across her face. Flashback end. If Endeavor and Gran Torino hadn't been there, I would have died and still 9 heroes lost their lives that day. I would have been a casualty. He does things to your mind. He gets in your mind, and he will use what you love against you, whatever it is, he will find out. All Might had tears streaming over his cheeks as he was forced to remember that day more clearly than ever. He didn't want anyone else to go through that, and that meant having to stop Orochimaru once more. That meant he needed the villain before him to understand. Dude, that is messed up. Are you okay, All Might? Naruto asked as he took a step forward, and placed a hand on All Might's shoulder. You're not exaggerating, are you? Naruto asked him, and he nodded his head. I will fight any villain with a smile on my face, but that man, that monster, I'm scared of him. He isn't a man, he's a demon in a man's body. So please understand. Naruto looked down at All Might with pity in his eyes. Neither of you tell anyone what I'm about to tell you, I mean it. You have to swear on your career as a pro hero that you will never speak about this. Naruto told them with his eyes going from pity to seriousness. I promise, Mirko stated without hesitation. He believed her. I promise too. All Might looked up, and what happened next shocked everyone in the room. Kurama removed his mask and lowered his hood. I don't need or want your protection, but my name is Naruto Uzumaki. I don't care about my life that much, but there are innocent children that I love at that orphanage I grew up in. If this Orochimaru is as dangerous as you say, he will use those children against me. Those children don't protect me, protect them, and I will kill Orochimaru when he comes. Naruto became firm with both of the heroes in the room. His identity meant nothing if there was a villain as scary as what All Might was talking about. Also, if everything goes well, neither of you are allowed to try and capture me when I'm not in costume. Naruto added that little part at the end with a small grin. You're fucking handsome, and I agreed to that. If Orochimaru comes, I'm going to support you, Mirko stated with the smallest of nods that she could manage to do. Also, aren't you Midnight's son? Mirko asked with a tilt of her head. She recognized him from the hospital. Yes, I am, and you, All Might? Naruto asked as he looked down at the grown man that had been crying his eyes out. He was silent for several minutes. That is all you want? And even after my story, you're still going to fight? All Might wanted this boy to realize that he couldn't fight, it was too dangerous. He needed to hide. It's too dangerous to hide. Huh? All Might asked with shock. If this man is as dangerous as you say, then I can't hide. He will track me down, figure out who I am, and use what I love against me. It sounds like no matter what happens, I'm screwed, but if I can protect those kids against Orochimaru by not hiding, I have to. So, no matter what, keep those children safe. Naruto spoke in a harsher, demanding tone when All Might looked at him with those eyes filled with sorrow. All Might nodded. You're right, even if we did hide you, that only delays him. You're a true hero, Naruto Uzumaki. Even when faced with impossible odds, you stand before it with great bravery. You possess the soul of a hero. You have earned my respect, and my friendship. Naruto smirked and walked over to the window, putting his mask and hood back on. True hero? Naruto asked him with his smirk still fully in place. Don't you know, even villains like me have things they care about. Stuff important to them. The only reason I even told you who I am was to make sure you're able to find those kids and protect them. So, keep your promises? Naruto stated to them as he jumped out of the window. Location: Tokyo Mall. Oh my god! The heroes who arrived on the scene were shocked to find themselves too late to help, far too late to be able to help the heroes who had fought the good fight. When the closest heroes arrived, instead, they were met with a partially destroyed mall. Hanging in the middle of the mall, though, by their arms and legs, were the bloody and beaten bodies of the 3 heroes who had called for help. Turn off those cameras, turn them off. Naked as the day they were born, the barely alive heroes Manuel, Ingenium, and Bubble Girl were hanging in the air. Across their stomachs were words carved there, the blood slightly drying already, but with a clear message. Yamada no Orochi has arrived. They are still breathing, get them down and get them to the hospital stat. Recovery Girl called out, having been pulled from Yue and arrived at the scene at the same time as the others. She looked, and she could still see that all of them were barely alive, but that wouldn't be the case for long if they weren't given help as soon as physically possible. With their injuries, they would need far more than her quirk in order to make a full recovery. They would need surgery as well. Recovery Girl looked at the phrase on their bellies, though, her eyes widening in shock and horror when she remembered the name. Recovery Girl, empty lady has been found in a park, and both Death Arms and Kamiri Woods have gone missing. She heard in her earpiece the sound of somebody telling her a status update on 3 of the heroes who had failed to check in. Now all heroes were supposed to check in on a bi-hourly basis to make sure that nobody went missing. Those 3 heroes had failed to check in, and if Empty Lady had been found, but the other 2 haven't been, then it would seem that this message wasn't just a coincidence. Orochimaru was truly back. But I thought Orochimaru had been killed 20 years ago. All Might, Endeavor, and Grand Torino all reported he was dead. How can he be back? Recovery Girl thought with a frown marring her elderly features. Years ago, every pro-hero who knew of Orochimaru had been informed about his death. It had been cause for celebration for many, but this message was clearly no false image. Orochimaru had been erased completely from history. No villain book spoke of him. He had never appeared in the news. All heroes other than select few who knew of him had their memories modified to forget him. They never wanted the terror that was Orochimaru to inspire future criminals like him. This was a clear message. I'm back. Recovery Girl, do you know anything about this? One of Ingenium's sidekicks asked her, and she tapped her cane against the ground. He had a right to be curious and worried. Ingenium was injured critically, with the possibility of death. Will the boss be okay? He asked with more concern in his voice than before. Recovery Girl gripped her cane tightly. He should live, they should all live, but a very dangerous criminal is on the loose. You need to go home, be with your family as much as you can. This won't be a fight, what is coming will be a war. Tell all your coworkers they need to be prepared. Recovery Girl didn't want to speak anything of what was happening, since apparently even Orochimaru being alive wasn't supposed to be known. There were only 3 villains whose names were purposely erased from history itself, for fear that they could spark new villains. If any of those villains appeared, it pretty much amounted to war for the heroes who encountered them. A losing battle for any but the most powerful heroes, and even the most powerful heroes would have trouble winning those battles without a team behind them. If Orochimaru was alive, war was coming. If Orochimaru was alive, then the world had become a much darker place for the heroes. They needed to be on constant watch once more, always aware, and in fear that being alone could be the end of their lives. All for One, while heartless, never went into a battle that he knew that he couldn't win, and didn't try and take any quirks that he found to be useless to him. Orochimaru, though, that man took any quirk that he just felt like he wanted, and he took over the bodies, leaving behind nothing in his wake. Not to mention she herself was angry. A few people had a lot of explaining to do. Thanks for watching. I hope you had as much fun as I did putting this epic what if together. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a single twist in the story. Drop your thoughts, theories, or even wild ideas in the comments. I read every single one. And hey, if you're craving more awesome Naruto content, go check out the other videos on the channel. I've got plenty of heat waiting for you. Until next time, stay sharp, stay awesome, and remember, even a shadow clone needs love. Peace out.